Good evening, everyone. So the council meeting will start in a few minutes.
Okay. MCTV, how are we? Good evening and welcome to the MILLBRAE City Council meeting of Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. I apologize, we're a little bit late. We had a special council meeting on goal setting and are just now coming back. So thank you for bearing with us. City Clerk, could you please do roll call?
Councilmember Pappen. Here. Councilmember Cahalan. Here. Councilmember Fung.
Here.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Here.
Mayor Snyder.
Here.
All members of the City Council are present.
And if everyone could please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, it is my honor to recognize the hardworking men and women of our Public Works Department. Today, the City of MILLBRAE, whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of utmost importance to the sustainable and resilient communities, public health, quality of life, and well-being of the people of the City of MILLBRAE, and whereas the theme for this year is Connecting the World through Public Works Week, where public works intertwines us all in mutually beneficial relationship through infrastructure and the services they provide. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the help of public work professionals who are federally mandated first responders and of the engineers, managers, employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is the public interest for the leaders, citizens, and communities alike in the City of MILLBRAE to gain knowledge of and to understand the importance of public works and its programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, and whereas the city desires to recognize and uplift its public works employees, often the unsung heroes of our society who serve the public every day with professionalism and quiet dedication. Now, therefore, we, the members of the MILLBRAE City Council, do hereby proclaim May 21st to May 27th as 2023 as National Public Works Week. And we urge all citizens to join with the representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. So, City Engineer and Public Works Director, Sam Batista.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. Thank you for proclaiming May 21st through the 27th, 2023 as Public Works Week. Throughout the pandemic and the winter storms, your Public Works team worked tirelessly to keep the residents and businesses safe from property damage and flooding. They are out in the middle of the night fixing water main breaks and clearing fallen trees. They keep the streets open, fill potholes, and make sure the traffic signals are operating. They maintain the parks, the medians, spur trail, and fields for residents and visitors to enjoy. They keep the wastewater treatment plant processing the sewage and ensure we comply with state and federal regulations. They keep the city facilities clean and in working condition. They conduct walk audits around the schools and promote environmentally friendly programs. They investigate residents' complaints and prepare plans and specifications for capital improvement projects. This is just a short list of what your Public Works team does for the city. Tonight, we have 24 of the 58 Public Works team members in attendance. The team presented tonight collectively has over 260 years of City of MILLBRAE experience. At this time, I am proud to introduce to you your dedicated Public Works team who could make it tonight. So I'm going to call each person up so you could recognize them. So first, I'm going to call up the Public Works Administration team, starting with Deputy Director Craig Sintis. Senior Office Assistant Nicole Wang. Administrative Assistant Vivian Pang. Please come. Next is the environmental programs with Andrea Papajohn, the environmental programs manager. And next is the water and garage division, Leonard Harkness, the supervisor, newly minted supervisor. Nick Tippins, our senior water maintenance worker. Kevin Matlock, water maintenance worker. And then next comes the Streets, Collections, and Storm Division. Mike Killigrew, Streets Collection Supervisor. Chris Falzon, Senior Storm Maintenance Worker. Brad Rosinski, Streets Maintenance. And John Royas, Senior Collections Maintenance. Carlos Medina, Collections Maintenance. Next comes the Parks Division. We have John Giannoli, Parks Supervisor. And then Facilities Division, Dave Martinez, Senior Lead Facilities Worker. Evan Ramirez, Facilities Maintenance Worker. Next is your Water Pollution Control Plan and Laboratory staff, Harry Kwong, the Chief Operator. Kevin Caesar, Lab and Source Control Supervisor. Bob Munier, our Operator 2. Stephen Carbajal, Operator 2. Justin Ledbetter, our Operator in Training. And last but not least, the Engineering Division. Keith Bong, our Public Works Inspector. Nicole Tandle, Senior Civil Engineer, and Armando Mora, Senior Civil Engineer. Nicole Wang, come on up. You were the second one. Come on, Nicole. So Nicole Wang is Senior Office Assistant, and did I get everybody in the crowd? Yes, I did. So,
With your permission, I'm sure City Council would like to join you. We'll get a good group team photo. You know, Public Works guys, especially the sewage treatment plant, you know that I adore you. I adore sewage treatment plants. But one of the things I think I am so proud of as mayor this year during all of the rains and the tree falls, all I got were compliments from the public. And I know quite often you do not get the publics. You're out in the street, and if somebody's having a bad day, they're taking it out on you. So I hope that the public will join me in saying how grateful I am, we are, for everything that you do for us every day. Thank you. Of course, tree people, I absolutely.
You'll still be seen.
Easy, look at you.
Yeah, easy. No breaking
move,
nothing.
dude. Blame it on me. Hey, you got it, guys. Thanks, guys. Good job, Nicole. You did well.
While everybody is walking, I will also say how many, actually, Sam?
Yeah, Mayor, while everyone's taking their seat, I would just like to echo your comments and the great work of the men and women of our Public Works Department that keep the water running, toilets flushed, maintaining, as was mentioned, all of our parks. And my hat's off to everybody and the great work that they do and the great team spirit and camaraderie. So thanks much to our whole Public Works crew for doing a great job, always, every day, 24/7.
Okay.
And by the way, to get Craig Sintis in a suit, that's something, so.
Almost didn't recognize him.
Well, the public won't know that Craig has a super fan club in the MILLBRAE Leos Club, so has many fans. Okay, thank you. Next up is proclamation proclaiming May as Hepatitis Awareness Month, and the Vice Mayor is going to read the proclamation. And do we have you here, Mr. If you want to work your way on up.
All right, whereas viral hepatitis affects millions of people worldwide, there are 5 different types of viral hepatitis: A, B, C, D, and E, with B and C being the most common and serious forms. And whereas many people infected with viral hepatitis are unaware of their status since they have no symptoms, leading to continued transmission and chronic liver disease. And whereas chronic hepatitis B and hepatitis C is a leading cause of liver cancer in the United States, which worldwide causes 3 million fatalities each year. And whereas effective treatments for hepatitis B and C are available, and a hepatitis B vaccine can prevent infections. Whereas the San Francisco Bay Area has one of the highest rates of chronic hepatitis B and liver cancer in the United States. And the CDC reports that liver cancer from hepatitis B and hepatitis C kills more people in the San Francisco Bay Area than anywhere else in the United States. Whereas through campaigns to raise public awareness about viral hepatitis, access to screening, and linkage to appropriate care, MILLBRAE residents can take a proactive approach to prevent and/or treat hepatitis infections. Now, therefore, we, the members of the MILLBRAE City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2023 as Hepatitis Awareness Month and urge all residents to learn about viral hepatitis, participate in the National Hepatitis Testing Day on May 19th, and support efforts to prevent and treat this serious health issue.
Thank you.
And we have Jonathan Ho accepting.
Oh, Richard, sorry. No problem.
Richard, so.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll make this quick. The City Council, thank you so much for taking this opportunity to talk about this really important issue. I have a very, very brief kind of short lesson that you have graciously allowed me a couple of minutes to present. And so I'll make it really related to here in MILLBRAE as well as just why it's so important. So as you heard, hepatitis B and hepatitis C are a major burden here in the United States, but most people don't ever hear about it or see it. And that's often because there are no symptoms until it becomes late stage liver cancer or liver cirrhosis. So in the US alone, there's somewhere between 850 to 2.4 million people who are chronically infected with Hep B. We as an organization do a lot of Hep B work because there's so many Asian Pacific Islanders here in the Bay Area, particularly MILLBRAE. I think you guys are 44% Asian and Pacific Islander. And in San Mateo County, there's an estimated 10,744 folks with this disease. And you might ask, okay, so I haven't heard of it. Why is it scary? Well, 1 in 12 Asian American and Pacific Islander adults has this disease. That's almost 1 in 10. That's almost 10% of people. And compared to the just total population in the US, that's a 1 in 1,000. So a huge health disparity. So much so that the CDC calls it the biggest health disparity between Asian American and Pacific Islanders and general American population. Yet 2/3 of people who have this don't know it because, again, they aren't going to feel sick until it becomes liver cancer. And only 1 in 4 will develop the liver cancer from it. So really briefly, the common patient from from this is someone who was, maybe had parents born in Asia, moved here, and when they're trying to do the American dream, so many people, kind of like Anders and folks that come and live full, healthy lives, and then in their 40s, 50s, or 60s go, oh, my stomach hurts. Maybe I have an ulcer, maybe indigestion, only to go to their doctor and have their doctor say, you have late-stage liver cancer, you have less than a year to live. And people are just dumbfounded. How could this be? I felt fine yesterday. And so we're really trying to prevent that from happening. And so there's good news. There's an effective vaccine. If you have had children born after the 90s, you'll remember that your doctor tested you for this, or that your kid needed this shot, this vaccine, to go to school. Yet this prevents a lot of the cycle of transmission from happening now, but that doesn't help for all the older Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders that live in our communities who are kind of these potential ticking time bombs. So really quickly, there are two different types of Hep B, chronic and acute. You might know the word chronic from people who say I have chronic back pain. So this is lifelong, and that's the version that we're really afraid of. And that's contracted mostly at birth from a mom who has the disease, but again, has no symptoms, unknowingly passes it on to her, 3 or 4 children, and then they grow up thinking that they're totally fine, and they may be one of those unlucky 1 in 4 who have it. And that conversion to the chronic form of the disease happens mostly in folks' youth or as infants, because your immune system hasn't developed. But as an adult, you don't get this long-term version of the disease because our immune systems are built up. So you do get sick, and it really kind of sucks. You can be in the hospital as long as a month, but you will beat the disease and have natural immunity. Whereas when you contract the disease as an infant, it stays with you your whole life. And that's why you see all this liver cancer in the Bay Area, because you have so many Asian immigrants. How it's transmitted, really quick, just to make sure people don't have misinformation. It's through blood, semen, and other bodily fluids, but not saliva, sweat, urine, or tears. So we sadly hear a lot of folks who say, oh, my uncle has this. He lives in a different part of the house. He doesn't eat with us. He doesn't hug the kids. He doesn't kiss the kids. He doesn't, interact. And that you can imagine for many families who, family is so much is terrible when, as long as they're not bleeding on things or sharing sexual partners or doing IV drug use, that's not going to be something that transmits. So we also do a lot of work educating on that. Really coolly, there's the new Hep B trifecta, which is these 3 new things in California where we really hope that this is going to change how much Hep B and Hep C gets found. And that's one, a California law in 2021 requiring primary care to offer this test. So if you're at your doctor, that was one of the worst things because this wasn't part of your annual screening. You had to ask for Hep B and Hep C. 2022 February, CDC recommended Hep B vaccination for almost everyone, pretty much those except for those at risk is 60 plus. But even if they wanted the vaccine, they were supposed to get it. And then finally, really recently in 2023, last month, or I guess 2 months ago, the CDC changed the recommendation to be every adult. So now they should be getting it. You guys all should be getting it at your doctor so you can make sure not to have this silent disease. Screening's really easy. It's a blood test. It's free because it's a preventative care. Vaccination, same thing. Protects you for life, free. So all those barriers shouldn't be affecting folks. People just need to go in and do it. So how can you help? Just get tested. All of us know our neighbor who, it might be Chinese or Vietnamese, especially here in MILLBRAE, friends, family. Just say, hey, I heard this random Asian guy do this speech in the MILLBRAE City Council. So maybe get tested. Educate your friends and family, fight this stigma. A lot of older Asians who even know this or have this won't talk about it because there's this fear of thinking it's an STD or that they'll infect other people. And then, of course, you can become a Hep B-free champion, work on it, talk about it, do something about it, and we take volunteers to do stuff all the time. In fact, we're doing this really big initiative starting this month and going for the rest of the year where we're going door to door in downtown MILLBRAE businesses, particularly those that cater to Asian populations, but all of them, and handing out these brochures and ads and asking them to pledge to get their employees to talk about it and then go get screened themselves. And the little incentive is if they sign this little pledge, we're going to publish all those business names in some ethnic media and hopefully in the Daily Journal if they can give us a nonprofit discount price. So we started this, we did this kickoff at the dim sum restaurant. I think this is Yan Peninsula, not too long ago. Great dim sum there if you want dim sum. And so I wanted to keep this quick. I think that's all I've got. But thank you so much for listening. And we're really excited to do the work in the MILLBRAE community. Thank you so much, City Council, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilwoman. Go ahead,
I just
Vice
wanted
Mayor.
to say, Richard, you came and spoke to the Leo's Club, and that was so wonderful to speak to a large group of our youth in the community and empowering them to go home and speak to their families and their parents and their grandparents. And I just really want to encourage any groups in MILLBRAE, if you have an audience to hear this, to reach out and invite Richard to come speak to your group. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That opportunity is great. We can only do so much talking to a small group here or there, but when we get community members, whether it be a local church or a workers union or businesses that get together that happen to have a large Asian audience, that's how we actually make differences in our community, just like much of the work that happens that the City Council does.
Thank you, Richard, and the entire Happy Free organization. Thank you for your dedication to this cause, very important cause. You are helping and educating a very large population of our city, 57% of Asian Americans. Nearly 40% of our population are first-generation immigrant, and much of them have been riddled by this horrible disease. This is a treatable, preventable, but yet very terrible disease that has riddled millions of lives every year. And it is your dedication, right, and your organization, and just countless hours, and just going door to door, from one restaurant to another, from one business to another, and educating everybody the importance and the awareness of this disease and how many lives you have saved as a result of this very important work. We're very thankful for your effort. Also wanted to thank Supervisor Pine as well for, I think it was a few years ago when he provided some of the discretionary Measure K fund to kickstart the San Mateo County effort in the education, the awareness, and the free testing program, and also years of support from the Peninsula Healthcare District and also the Director, Cheryl Fema, for much of her dedications and support for this program as well. Last but not least, every single one within your organization, all your volunteers, all the kids who step up and just say, yeah, I want to help because I also have a grandma, I also have a grandpa who may benefit from this program. So thank you, Richard. Really appreciate it on behalf of the entire city. Thank you so much.
Director, thank you. Executive Director, question, because yes, it's very important for our Asian American community, but it's also highly prevalent in the Latinx and the African American community. Does your organization work with those groups, or are there similar groups reaching out to all of ours? Also, in your presentation, you talked about the vaccine is recommended to up to age 59. MILLBRAE, I believe, has the oldest population in San Mateo County. Should older people older than 59, and I'm one of them, should we be worried?
Yeah, great question. So to address your first concern, for hepatitis B specifically, there has been an increase in Hispanic, Latinx, and African American populations, but that's more acute Hep B, a lot from the opioid crisis that's occurred. And so, of course, it's still a sickness that with comorbidities can really harm folks, but acute hepatitis B is much less likely to cause lasting liver damage. Now, African immigrant populations from sub-Saharan Africa has a much higher rate of this as well, although those populations aren't that huge in the Bay Area. We would say that another big concern is just that there are so many mixed families here in the Bay Area. And we have lots of patient stories where the person is actually American born, got it from their parents, then grow up and then, meet their future wife, and then have given that acute version to their future wife. And that future wife gets terrified about this potential chronic disease. They find out that it's an acute form, but they still got sick. And so they make sure that the now husband is treated for the long-term part of it, but then they are fine. But again, it's this fear. And the nice thing that folks don't realize is if you do get vaccinated for it, which most adults are not, I think it's only like 30% of American adults are vaccinated, then if you were to encounter it as an adult through sexual contact, or even for those who are using drugs, they wouldn't catch Hep B because there was a vaccine for it. Whereas Hep C now has a cure but no vaccine. So it's a little bit complex between the different issues. In terms of your question on older folks, the CDC's recommendation says up to 60 plus, and that, or 59, and then they say 60 plus with risks. Those risks are usually if you have any of those risky behaviors, or also are someone who like travels to endemic countries of that. So we have always said, lots of folks retire and say, I've never been to China, I've never been to Vietnam, Cambodia, or, I want a safari in Africa. And, God forbid you get injured and have to use the medical system there. You don't know how clean it is. And we're like, it's free anyway. It's a vaccine that'll prevent you for life. And that's why the CDC also adds this one line that says, we recommend 19 to 59 as well as infants and adolescents. And if you want it at the end. So whenever we're out in the community, we are always saying, just get it. There's no harm. It doesn't do you any harm to get the vaccine, even if you're never going to contract the disease. And since it's almost always covered under insurance, there's no reason why you wouldn't.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next up, City Manager, agenda overview and staff briefing.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor, members of the City Council. Again, Tom Williams, City Manager. So this evening, then, starting with item number 2 is the agenda overview and staff briefing. It also includes a calendar of events, reports of bill and claims, and report out from the April 25th, 2023 closed session. Then we move to item number 3, which is approval of the meeting minutes for the regularly scheduled meeting of February 14th, 2023. Then item 4, we have an oral report this evening from the Parks and Rec Commission to present their work plan. Also, we have the Sister Cities Commission work plan that is on the agenda. However, we would like to continue that to May 23rd, so members of the Sister Cities Commission can be present this evening. Then we move to public communication. This is any item that's not on the agenda where any member of the public can address the City Council. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Then we move to the consent calendar, starting with item number 5, and that's adoption of a resolution awarding a construction contract to Mitchell Engineering for the Awani Complete Utility and Pavement Rehabilitation Project and authorizing task order number 2 for construction management services under an on-call agreement with CSG Consultants. Item number 6 is adoption of a resolution awarding a construction contract to Pacific Underground Construction for the Arroyo Seco Storm Drain Bypass Project and authorizing task order number 3 for construction management services under an on-call agreement also with CSG Consultants. And item number 7, approved by motion to authorize the mayor to sign a letter in support of AB 1379 regarding open meetings and local agencies. Then we move to public hearing. We have 3 public hearing items, starting with item number 8. It's a public hearing and resolution vacating a portion of public utility easement at 1002 Crestview Drive and accepting a new public utility easement at 1002 Crestview Drive and authorizing the filing of the vacation resolution with the San Mateo County Recorder. Item number 9 is a public hearing on adoption of proposed updates to the City of MILLBRAE service and fee schedule for citywide fees in the Planning Division and Recreation Departments. Item number 10 is a public hearing on proposed adoption of Central County Fire Department fiscal year 23-24 master fee schedule for fire prevention services. Then we move to existing business, 2 items, starting with item number 11. That is a review of the public art element in compliance with the MILLBRAE Gateway Project's conditions of approval. And item number 12 is the budget study session for fiscal year 23-24, including operating and capital improvement program budgets. And that is an informational item. There is no new business items, and then we move to council comments and adjournment. And Mayor, can we just take a quick break? I think we need to reset the speaker and technology, I think.
Sure, how much time do
Elaine,
you
how much
need?
time?
Okay,
5 minutes?
5-minute break. At
Sorry about that.
7:39, we'll come back at 7:45.
It may take less time.
Test, test, test. Test, test, test.
Test, 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 test.
Yeah,
One,
test,
two.
test. Better?
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2, testing. Testing, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, testing.
Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Okay.
Testing, testing, testing.
Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Well, I'm just comparing. Test. That's good. Is this one okay? Test.
Testing.
Okay, Mayor, I think.
Have I found my voice?
Oh, all right, test.
Testing.
Gina, did you find your voice? Got it, okay.
Okay, Mayor.
Okay. We do dearly love our technology. Readjourning at 7:42. And again, public, if something's not working, do let us know so that we can fix it. There's a lot of new technology we're bringing in, and there is always a breaking in period on that. Thank you. City Manager, please continue.
Yes, thank you. Just some quick updates. MILLBRAE Earth Day we celebrated on that Saturday, April 29th. We had over 50 volunteers in our Parks and Recreation division coming together to plant approximately, I believe it was 39 trees and volunteers, or 15 oak trees on the spur trail, and then also cleaning up the area along the spur trail and actually around Taylor Middle School. So we just appreciate all of the volunteers that came out to celebrate Earth Day a week and a half ago on Saturday, April 29th. Also, our Spin bike program in partnership with the City of Burlingame will launch the joint bike share program this Thursday, May 11th. And this will be a soft launch and will include 40 bikes placed in corrals in MILLBRAE and 40 bikes placed in corrals in Burlingame. So riders will be able to rent e-bikes for use within both cities, and riders must be 18 years and older and encouraged to park in one or more of the corrals located within each of the city and wear a helmet. Also, Marina Vista and Bayside Manor Park upgrades. The concept plans have been developed. We have a community meeting tomorrow evening on May 10th. Bear with me for just a second. Yeah, May 10th at 6:30 p.m. Is an open house to unveil the design concepts as a result of a community-wide survey. And that is starting from 6:30 to 8:30, and it will be at the Recreation Center. And then lastly, we have two items coming up. May 20th, or Friday, May 19th and May 20th is the MILLBRAE Art Show. The MILLBRAE Cultural Arts Advisory Committee invites artists to submit artwork or attend the MILLBRAE Art Show. And the art show will begin, as I mentioned, May 19th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and conclude on Saturday, May 20th. And that art show will be open from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And for more information, people can visit our website at MCAACART, so MCAACART show. And then lastly, Saturday, May 20th at 9 a.m., we'll be doing a compost giveaway. We plan to have this giveaway on the spur trail off of MILLBRAE Avenue between Palm Avenue and Elder, kind of by our sand filling station, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and it will be while supplies last. So, Mayor, that concludes a brief update of what's happening and the activities in the city.
Thank you, City Manager. And can we get a report from the April 25th, 2023 closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session to discuss a matter of litigation At that meeting, instructions were given to council, but there was no reportable action.
Thank you, Mr. Conneran. Next up is approval of minutes. If I can have a motion in a second, or if there are any comments.
I'll move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Kaelin.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. City Clerk, City Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Certainly, Mayor. Councilmember Pappen.
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan.
Aye.
Councilmember Fung.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Aye.
Mayor Snyder.
Aye.
The meeting minutes of February 14th, 2023 passed by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. And I believe next is agenda item number 4, and it's the oral report from city committee and commission chairs. And tonight we have the adoption of fiscal year 2023-2024 Park and Recreation Commission work plan. And we have the city manager and Ms. Davis, Ms. Douglas.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Stephanie Douglas, and I am the chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission. I'd like to start off just kind of introducing, they're not here tonight, but let you know that we have Steve Henderson, John Kiefer, and Julie Turner also on the commission, and they've done a great job this year helping us with all the things I'm about to tell you about. We do have a vacant space right now, so if anybody's interested, we are looking to fill that seat. So we've had a banner year. I don't know if you noticed, but we have that new rec center that we opened. So I'm very proud to be the one presenting tonight because we've got a lot to talk about. So the commission had a very active role in the recreation center. We had a subcommittee that worked on some of the final touches as far as, and also planning the grand opening that was held on June 11th of 2022. We also supported staff with the Central Park Playground, which was a new playground, new equipment that was put in there, and we had an active role in picking out the colors and the equipment, and so very appreciative to be able to have that feedback. We also continued our participation in the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, which is a very active committee, and I know our board members that work on that, or commissioners that work on that are very involved, talking about sidewalks and bicycle paths and things of that nature. We also provided feedback regarding, with the new rec center, you have new programming. So we provided feedback on programming, potential rental fees, and the rental fees as far as new rooms and facilities, what does it look like and how does that compare to other recreation centers? So with that, we're moving into the future and looking to see what we can do in 23 and 24. Obviously, first and foremost, we want to be an advisory board to the council. So if you have any priorities that pertain to parks and recreation, we certainly want to be able to be the voice of the community for the council. We're also the advisory body for the active transportation plan, and this is an ongoing thing with the Bike and Pedestrian Committee. Programs and fees, this is, again, a continual thing that the Parks and Rec Commission works on. So when there's new fees that come up or new program ideas, we provide feedback to staff on that. And then any capital improvement plans, which I know we're going to have a few, and I'll get to that in a second. In regard to facilities or parks, we provide feedback on that as well. And then support the staff with community enrichment. So making sure that everybody has equal access to our parks and recreation programs and advocating if individuals are not having that access. And then specifically for this year, we are going to be working on the Marina Vista Park project with the city manager just referenced. There will be an open house tomorrow night at the rec center from 6:30 to 8:30, and free ice cream for the first 150 people. So we hope to have people come out and look at those designs. And we're also going to be looking at the Bayside Manor project this year. So hoping to provide some feedback for that. With those two items, the commission is requesting a $1,000 budget for each of those, so $2,000 total, to help support the grand opening of those parks. I'm hoping to be able to provide some giveaways, some swag for the community to encourage them to come out and support the new parks. And look at that, blank screen, I am done. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Chair Douglas. Comments? Liaison, do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay, it doesn't look like anybody, I have a couple. Might want, for the grand opening of the two parks when they're ready, would you want other activities? So for example, the Rotary and/or the Leos, when the Rotary lends us their carnival equipment, they could have that. So would you like any of that for those events too?
I think definitely, we're not at that point yet, but I definitely, when we're doing the planning, I think if we can get other nonprofits or community organizations to participate, we would love that. And again, we don't know exactly what that grand opening is going to look like, but the more the merrier.
Great. And then under the, I think it's task 2 is the active transportation task. We are working on a goal setting that may or may not include the bike rodeo. We haven't done a bike rodeo since 2019. My main reason for pushing this is I'm seeing an awful lot of young people skateboarding or biking, but a lot more skateboarding or scootering without helmets. And that's our one way to get helmets out. So the city manager and I have talked about maybe if we can't afford it, we don't have the bandwidth this year, another way to get helmets out to children and adults who could use a helmet on that. So I just want to hope that that can be fit into that additional task.
Definitely, and I see that as well. A lot of people not wearing helmets, and I think education is the key. And having events like that can certainly help, spread the word about wearing helmets, be safe, and especially it ties very well with parks because people are riding their bikes to the parks. So.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I forgot to mention, I do want to thank the staff as well. They've been very supportive. Hannah Moran is the director, and then prior to her, Brady McKenzie, or Mackenzie Brady, they've been very supportive. So very thankful for the staff.
Very good. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'm really enjoying working with the Park and Rec Commission, and, they put a lot of work and thought into this plan. A lot of great discussion, and thank you for your leadership and great facilitation on that. And we do, I think it is 7, and we only have 4 members right now, so it doesn't show who's the lead and secondary on all of these, but just acknowledging the committee for really stepping up to take active roles in all of these components. So thank you very much.
And it is a great commission to be on. One of the things I appreciate is we always have action items. We're not just there to meet. The staff is very good at giving us things to work on and to focus on, and the commissioners are all very excited to work on it. So that's a great environment to be in.
Excellent. I want to congratulate you as the liaison to the bike portion of the Park and Rec. They've really stepped it up. The agenda packet is terrific. The photo of and the discussion for electronic bikes on the spur trail was a great discussion that hopefully will go forward. I know we have one public comment online. Mr. Raquel, I had you down for items not on the agenda, but you also speak at BPAC. Do you want this or for public comment not on the agenda? Okay, thank you. City Clerk, if you could call who's online. Stay.
Alice, you can unmute yourself, please.
Hi, it's me.
Hi, Ms. Kwong.
Oh, hi, everyone, and good evening. I am a citizen in MILLBRAE for over 20 years.
Ms. Kwong? Ms. Kwong,
Yes,
this is
can you hear me?
an agenda item for the Park and Recreation Work Plan. We will have the agenda item that you left me a slip for. It's coming up. Unless you're
Okay,
talking
I
about the
want
Park and Rec
public
Work
comment
Plan.
for regular. You can put me on later.
I'm sorry, I couldn't
Said you
understand.
can put her on for later.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kwong. Okay, no further comments. Thank you, Ms. Douglas. Oh, this is an action item. We are voting to approve.
So moved.
Almost simultaneous, I'll say Councilman Fung, Councilwoman Pappen. Any further discussion on the work plan? City Clerk, could you call the vote?
Councilmember Pappen.
Yes.
Councilman Cahalan.
Aye.
Councilmember Fung.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Aye.
Mayor Snyder.
Aye.
The work plan for the Parks and Recreation Commission for the fiscal year of 2023 and 2024 passed by the vote of 5-0.
And thank you, congratulations, Chair Douglas. I know that at least 2 people have turned in applications for the vacancies, and I encourage this council subcommittee that council subcommittee interviews Park and Rec. They just don't interview Planning Commission, correct?
Correct, Mayor.
So if we can get those interviews done, we can get you fully staffed. Thank you. Next up is public communication. This is for items that are not on tonight's agenda. We have one person, one person by paper and by Zoom. Let's go ahead with Zoom first because she turned her paperwork in at the previous session. So Ms. Kwong, you're up.
Oh, yes. Can I talk in Chinese? Because Chinese is better than English. OK，大家好。咁我喺呢度住咗20幾年，我喺呢度嘅 citizen。Now我哋 MILLBRAE 係有5個 district，and every council member for me understanding is should 幫助我哋所有嘅市民，令到我呢個城市更加好、更加安全，令到呢個城市嘅經濟發展。但係咧，我唔希望我哋嘅 council 變咗係我哋市民嘅老闆。我哋嘅 council 冇權去控制我哋嘅市民。譬如好似我哋今晚早前開會講到要收乜嘢嗰啲空置嗰啲鋪啊或者屋嘅稅，你哋做咗幾多嘅工？究竟你了解咗 MILLBRAE 有幾多？點解要將一啲你哋嘅精力都控制咗我哋嘅市民，我哋一個屋主嘅權利？所以邊一個提出呢啲嘅，其實都係大錯特錯，完全唔去服務我哋嘅市民，只係去為咗某一啲嘅政治目的，或者某一啲個人嘅理解，去增加咁多冇必要係唔合法嘅一啲咁嘅條例。所以我希望我哋所有嘅council person 市長、副市長好清晰知道，你哋係服務我哋市民，唔係去剝削我哋市民，或者唔係提出你哋一啲你哋想象之中可以控制我哋市民，或者剝削我哋權利嘅呢啲咁多條框出嚟。希望你哋尊重我哋嘅呢個市民嘅權利，亦都尊重你哋應該服務市民嘅職責，你哋嘅義務，唔係去剝削我哋，唔係去諗下都係我哋喺度已經 MILLBRAE 已經就嚟變成一個世界大同噶啦。所謂世界大同，即係話我嘅荷包即係你嘅荷包，隔離叔婆冇錢嘅係有錢嗰個人。大家有冇睇過？我哋都係好慳㗎。我連買一杯去一般而家買一杯波霸奶茶我都唔捨得去買，因為我翻屋企我自己沖杯茶就係啦。我哋啲錢係咁樣嚟㗎，我哋從來冇不良嗜好，唔會去吸毒。我哋唔舒服食得Tylenol就繼續做工。我哋平均做工係一日唔止8個鐘啊，一個禮拜唔止5日。我哋係好慳㗎。我哋兩公婆一個做日頭，一個做晚黑，係咁湊大啲細佬哥，個個而家先至係一個 good citizen。一個社會應該係要有道德責任、社會責任。我哋本身嘅我哋選你哋呢啲民選官員，當然有啲人得好少票啫，但係理解成你嘅職責係服務23000幾嘅市民，唔係服務一啲我哋同呢個城市冇關係嘅人。又或者打我哋而家喺度住緊城市幾十年，貢獻咗一個城市幾十年嘅人嘅荷包，去幫助一啲冇必要嘅人。我希望你哋大家都明白。我相信如果唔係嘅話，我呢個城市就會俾我哋而家坐喺度嘅幾個人搞到我哋嘅城市立立。
Thank you. Your time is up. That was 3 minutes.
我希望你哋翻譯，而家即刻翻譯。
Okay. And City Clerk, do we want to explain the problem here?
So perhaps there's a request from the constituents of the translation so that they could be read back to the council. She obviously spoke 3 minutes. There's a lot have been said.
If they don't have a translate, I try my best. I can speak in English. I want everyone hear what I talk.
Yes, I would prefer.
Ms. Kwong, just hang on 1 second.
Yes.
Just hang on 1 second. Let me finish. Let me help. City Clerk, if it's possible, if you would be so pleased, at the end of the meeting, replay the tape, and then you can translate all of that into proper English.
I can do that.
And then they could be distributed back to the council so everybody get a transcript of what Ms. Kwong has said.
Madam Mayor, I would, Ms. Kwan is offering to do it in English. I would like to hear that now. I'm exceptionally disappointed that this whole program does not cover Cantonese at this point in time, particularly given the high percentage of our population that does speak Cantonese. So please, if she's offering to speak in English, I think we all deserve that opportunity to hear her.
I'll be okay with that.
City Manager?
Yeah, no, that's fine. If she wants to have 3 minutes now in English, that's
Okay.
appropriate.
Very good. Ms. Kwong, if you could, please. Sorry to make you repeat yourself.
Okay, at this time, I can try my best to speak in English, but please also read all our council, mayor and vice mayor understanding. Like a lot of our citizens here, they need the majority survey for at least the language is a big problem. And even though I can speak my barely broken English, but how about our audience? They don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I'm not going to occupy too much time. And as I say earlier, first of all our council person, mayor and vice mayor should be considered a common to serve our community citizens. You are not our boss. Please don't waste your time to thinking too much ordinary to control our citizens. Like tonight, early meeting, and everyone go to the stage. It's not supporting the recommendation for the tax on the vacant property. Please listen. And now in the top of the stage is only 5 of you. And tonight, we have more than 5 people talk and saying it's no. Even myself, I believe I presenting more than one than myself. I maybe present more than 100 people I know in MILLBRAE, and the same what I comment to against the ordinary. Please, considering you guys are serving 23,000 citizens, not serving 100. And we are choosing to here is not because you. We are choosing to living here is because we neither safety, environment, and convenience, and the community. And if you commit to serve majority citizen here, you will get our vote, no matter what. And I expect people to sit in the stage and try to serve the community, but not trying to get all those very bad rule or policy or ordinary to control the citizens. And understand, the citizen, they have a right and entitled to own something to live in here. We work so hard. Just give you an example. Even myself, even I never go to buy a boba lai cha because I can go home to make a boba lai cha or tea because we are not a spender. Where will be able to have a self-independency, financial independence because we are not spender. We are not so hard. We save. We balance our monthly sheet. It's not just like not working and gain something, or when I don't have a money, I watch out someone's money and hope they can share with me. No, we are young people. We entitled to work
Ms.
and support
Kwong?
ourselves.
Thank you. That's a little after 3 minutes. Thank you. Ron Raquel.
Good evening, City Council members. Thank you again for letting me speak again. Last Saturday at the goal meeting, I brought a concern about MILLBRAE and Magnolia Avenue, about pedestrian safety and traffic in that area. I've been on this for almost 5 years, but I got good news today from Armando that they're going to get funding for the intersection. And Sam's also doing a time study on it. It's music to my ears, but I'd also encourage the city council members to reach out to me because this is a very important concern of mine. And I've gotten a bunch of signatures, almost 200 signatures knocking door to door and standing by Spur Trail. And a lot of people have voiced concerns about people just not regarding pedestrian safety. And I really urge every one of you to contact me. I gave the petition to Angelina, and hopefully she circulated it. Previous administrations did nothing. I mean, they just looked at me and said, well, we understand your concern, but it is important for the safety, and considering that we're going to get more traffic in MILLBRAE with the projects that are coming up, it only stands to reason that we're going to have more traffic and cut-through traffic in that area. And it's rather to be proactive than reactive. No one wants to see a fatality or a car collision in that intersection. And it would just behoove of the city to take this very seriously. And I really encourage the council members to reach out to me. And I appreciate your time and efforts with this. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Raquel. Daniel So.
Hello, good evening. Hello. Oh, hi.
You may want to speak a tiny bit louder.
Oh,
Different mics are different sensitivity.
okay. Hello. Hi. Hello. Hello.
We'll give him extra time.
Or maybe I'll speak louder.
There you go.
Oh, hi. Thank you for your time letting me to speak out here. I am here for talking about the MILLBRAE Parking and Rec Center. Before it was actually burned down, and I mean, I live right across the street. Used to park there without any problem. Ever since it got built, the new one, which I really love. I wish I could like visit there one day. Haven't really got a chance to. But anyways, one thing I really do not understand is that why is that I cannot park there like after like 11 p.m. Like I mean I used to work at the In-N-Out a long time, I mean, about several months ago, and I will come back around like 3:30 a.m. in the morning on the next day, and there's barely any parking spots outside of that rec center, so I will have to walk with like all the way from the library with a sore feet. So yeah, please reconsider this parking policy at the MILLBRAE Rec Center. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. So. We can't comment on items on the agenda, but I can tell you that District 3 will be having a meeting in the next couple of weeks. We're under new districts, and let's make sure you get invited to that. You're not the only one that shares that concern. City Clerk, do we have anyone online? Last call for any speaker slips. One more online.
Man Global Development. Please state your name for the record, please. You could go ahead and mute yourself.
I'm sorry, this is Margaret A. from City of MILLBRAE on Sebastian. Dear council members, I would like to voice my concern on the vacant home tax ordinance, which appear on the 23-24 strategic goal. I was wondering, how is this ordinance going to solve the housing issue that we're facing in our state? And what is the reason that you're taking away property right from homeowners? I believe that this is totally un-America. I do not support this. And besides, did anybody did any research on why our homes being left vacant for a long time? Is it because homeowners are waiting for planning approval? I've seen situations where it took years before the homeowners can get their approval permits. Are these homeowners subject to penalties as well? So these are concerns that I would like to express and would like someone to really do their research before making some unnecessary proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ning. What else?
No, there isn't any other hands raised.
Okay. Closing public comment for items not on the agenda, moving to consent calendar. And if there no, I have no slips removing anything from consent calendar. I'm looking at council. If there is no one wanting to remove anything, if we could get a motion for number 5, adoption of the resolution awarding a construction contract to Mitchell Engineering for the Awani Complete Utility and Pavement Rehabilitation Project, and authorizing task order number 2 for construction management services under an on-call agreement with CSG Consulting, action item. Agenda item number 6, adoption of a resolution awarding a construction contract to Pacific Underground Construction, Inc. for the Arroyo Seco Storm Drain Bypass Project, and authorizing task order number 3 for construction management services under an on-call agreement with CSG Consultants, also an action item. And consent item number 7, approved by motion to authorize the mayor to sign a letter in support of AB 1379 regarding open meeting local agencies and teleconferencing abilities. And if there is no other comment, a motion second.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Pappen. Thank you, Councilman Fung. Any further discussion? City Clerk, could you call the vote, please?
Councilmember Pappen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Councilmember Fung?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
Mayor Snyder?
Aye.
The consent calendar passed by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, tonight we have 3 public hearings, and each one will be handled obviously separately. The first one is a public hearing. This is agenda item number 8, public hearing and resolution vacating a portion of a public utility easement at 1002 Crestview Drive, accepting new public utility easement at 1002 Crestmont Drive, and authorizing the filing of a vacation resolution with the San Mateo County Recorder, and it is an action item. And City Manager, if you could please start us off with a report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to introduce our Public Works Director, Mr. San Batista, for a staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. Sam Bautista, Public Works Director. The item before you is a public hearing for the vacation of a portion of the utilities, public utilities easement at 1002 Crestview Drive. So just a little bit of background. On May 24th, 2022, City Council approved a single-family home project at 990 Larkspur Drive and a tentative parcel map affecting 1002 Crestview Drive. The approved tentative map requires vacation of a portion of the existing public utilities easement to enable the property owner to construct buildings on his property at 990 Larkspur Drive. The property owner filed an application with the city to vacate the portion of the public utilities easement, and the city, there are no city-owned or other utilities located in the existing portion of the PUE and no intention to utilize the PUE for future use. The property owner has secured concurrences from utility companies agreeing to vacate the subject PUE, and this action vacates an unused portion of that PUE and creates a new PUE for PG&E access for the overhead lines and a pole. So this slide just shows you the proposed site plan. This house here is the existing 1002 Crestview Drive, while this is the proposed 990 Larkspur Drive property. So regarding the PUE vacation, this existing PUE traverses through the rear of the property and continues along the entire 1,000 block of Crestview Drive. There are 2 areas of vacation. One is approximately 3,900 square feet, and the other one's about 500 square feet, shown here in yellow. As you can see, here's the one area, and in the second area. Staff has reviewed all the legal descriptions and the plat maps and found them to be accurate, and the city did put out the public notices, and it was in accordance with the California Streets and Highways Code. In addition, there are going to be PUE dedications. There are overhead PG&E lines and a pole within the property, and the property owner has created 2 new PUEs. One PUE is about 1,600 square feet, while the other is 277 square feet, as shown here in green. And once again, staff did review the legal descriptions and plat maps and have found them to be accurate. And staff recommendation is to adopt the resolution vacating a portion of the existing public utilities easement located at the property of 1002 Crestview Drive, except the dedications for the 2 newly created PUEs for overhead utility lines and the pole, and to authorize the filing of the vacation resolution with the San Mateo County Recorder's Office. And with that, I'm here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Comments? Thank you, Mr. Batista. Comments, council? I'm not seeing any comments. Hereby opening public hearing. Any public comments? I have no slips on this. City Clerk, do we have anyone online?
No, there isn't any hands raised.
Okay. Councilman Fung.
Just one clarifying question for the benefit of the public, right? Frankly, it is. It is my understanding that we will be vacating a large portion of the public utility easement and then creating a sliver, not the address. If you can put the slides back up a little bit, there's a green portion of it that you are proposing that we need to dedicate as the new public utility easement for the benefit of PG&E. Is that not correct, Mr. Batista?
Slide 5.
That is correct.
You can put the slide back up, we'll just clarify it for the benefit of the public. Here you go, that's it. So is it not true that there's no utility to be moved or relocated as part of this vacating of the previous slide, which is the yellow hatch version, hatch portion of the public utility easement?
That's correct. There are no city-owned utilities within those yellow areas.
And neither does any of those neighbors along Crestview or Larkspur would require any relocation of the utility, correct?
Correct.
And PG&E did certify that the green portion is all that they would need in order to service the utility pole that is at the corner of that property.
That is correct.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure everybody understand that.
This is pretty straightforward, and we have 2 new council members since we talked about this. I've driven the area, and this really has nothing other than I've been getting questions from neighbors there. We've had some mudslides right in that area. I know that the engineering studies were done for this property, and I hope they're still good. I did get some concerns from neighbors across the street with some of the trees, not necessarily on the property. This is my time to get to talk to Public Works. If we could just keep an eye on those trees and know that there's a number of neighbors concerned because we had so much rain and then those mudslides started and they're worried about the trees right along there. And so I've been up there keeping an eye on it, but if we could do another eye, and they're not commenting tonight, but I know they have concerns on that. So if we could just keep an eye and maybe come up with a way of making sure the residents know that we are spending extra attention because that hillside, other parts of that hillside have fallen before.
Duly noted, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I'm giving public a chance to raise their hands online because we had so many comments before. I'm not seeing any.
Mayor, you need a.
I opened the public hearing.
You didn't, okay.
Yeah, I opened the public hearing. I'm just getting ready to close the public hearing. Just trying to give the public a chance. I'm not seeing any hands. The city clerk is saying no hands. Closing public hearing. Bringing it back to council for any additional questions. I'm not seeing any. Then if there could be a motion.
Move approval.
Second?
Thank you, Councilwoman Pappen. Thank you, Councilman Fung. Seeing no further discussion, city clerk, please call the vote.
Councilmember Pappen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Councilmember Fung?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
Mayor Snyder?
Aye.
The resolution to vacate a portion of the public utility easement at 1002 Crestview Drive and accepting a new public utility easement at 1002 Crestview Drive and authorizing the filing of the vacation resolution with the San Mateo County Recorder passed by a vote of 5-0.
Excellent. Thank you, City Clerk. Thank you, Public Works. Next up is another public hearing, our second public hearing, agenda item number 9, public hearing on adoption of proposed updates to the City of MILLBRAE service and fee schedule for citywide fees, Planning Division, and Recreation Department fees. It's an action item. Mr. Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce our Finance Director, Mr. Mike Sung.
Thank you, City Manager Williams. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Today we'll be talking about the citywide fees. We've been engaging with a consultant over the last year to study various fees, which also include, for this time around, the Planning Division as well as the recreation fees, and also we've studied the citywide fees, especially the credit card service charge. With that, I'm actually going to turn this over to Courtney Ramos, our consultant from Matrix, and she will start the presentation.
Thanks, Mike. So good evening, everyone. My name is Courtney Ramos, and I'm here with Matrix Consulting Group. Here to kind of give you an overview of the study that we did in looking at everything. So if I could get the next slide, please. So really what we wanted to do tonight was give a brief introduction, who we are as a firm, our history with the city, kind of go over the scope of services that we had, talk a little bit about the legal framework regarding fees for service, give you an overview of the costing methodology and approach that we took for calculating fees for service, and then just kind of give a summary finding of results. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, I'm here with Matrix Consulting Group. We are in our 20th year of providing financial and management analytical services to local government. We're actually located just a little bit south in San Mateo. We focus on cost of service, process analysis, and management and staffing audits, as well as public safety reviews. We have previously worked with the city. We did a full citywide comprehensive fee study that was adopted back in early 2020, just before the pandemic hit. So this is really kind of coming back and looking at that. We had the same project team led by myself. I'm the vice president with Matrix Consulting Group and was the project manager, as well as Khushbu Hussain, who's a lead analyst and a senior manager with the firm. And we do have quite a bit of experience in the Bay Area, working with a lot of local jurisdictions, San Mateo, South San Francisco, Redwood City, Mountain View, Sunnyvale, so forth. Next slide, please. So for those of you who aren't familiar with a fee study, it's a tool for understanding current service levels, the cost and the demand for those services, and what fees can and should be charged for those services. So what it does is it really documents the services that you're providing for which you're charging a fee, the service level assumptions. So if there are inspections required or plan reviews required, what is the base level of those services? And then, of course, the full cost associated with providing those services. And the reasons that we do user fee studies or cost of services studies, the primary one is that we ensure compliance with state and local laws like Prop 218 and 26 that very specifically outline what can be a user fee or when it crosses the threshold into being a tax. It helps identify what is that full cost, the direct and indirect cost of providing fee-related services. It can help us streamline our fee schedules and get rid of outdated fees, include new services, or just better reflect the services that we're providing, so it's easier for applicants to understand the charges that they're facing. Next slide, please. So I talked a little bit about the legal framework. More broadly, though, for those who aren't familiar, California has several propositions, including 13, 4, 218, and 26. We've got Government Code 66014 and 66016, as well as an Attorney General opinion that basically all of them say that a user fee can be no more than it's necessary to cover the reasonable cost of the service provided. So we can't charge more for a service than it costs us to provide that service. And so what this study does is it's going to document that. There are, however, exceptions to these propositions and these rules. And the biggest exception to that is for recreation programs. So things like youth sports, adult sports, camps, rentals, they're exceptions. And the reason they are is because these are voluntary charges. We can't compel you to rent out the picnic area in our park versus the park in the city next door to us, or to rent out our facilities, or to use our basketball courts or our tennis courts. So because of that, we're allowed to kind of set our fees at a market rate. So we can take a look at what everybody else is charging, helps us recover a bit more of our costs in association with those services. Next slide, please. So when looking at fees for service, the approach that we take is what is considered a bottom-up approach. So what we do is we look at the time spent per unit of service and build upon that. So rather than kind of taking all the costs associated with the department and kind of averaging them out over all the various different services that are provided, we look at each individual service, take a look at the time, the average time that it takes to do that, and then look at the cost associated with that time. This is widely accepted and is actually the most defensible approach for calculating cost of service in fees. Through this process, we did look at fee schedules. As Mike had mentioned, we looked at planning and Parks and Rec. We also looked at building, but that part of the study took place last year and was adopted by council, I believe, in July of last year. And so for planning, what we did is we looked at adding fees for outside consultants and public noticing, some services that weren't on the fee schedule, as well as cross-departmental support for building, calculating fully burdened hourly rates for those positions, collecting time estimates as well for those services, and then looking at, what are the gaps between the revenue that's being generated and the cost associated with the department. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, what we did is we looked at updating fee schedules. So we want to make sure that the fee schedules reflect the services that are being provided. So through this process, kind of working with staff to make sure that the line items that are on the fee schedules are appropriate, that we're still providing those services, that we don't need to break them out, combine anything. We also wanted to make sure that the categories were representative of the services that we're providing, and really take a look at how and if we could better streamline the fee schedules. Next slide, please. So when we talk about establishing time estimates, what we wanted to do is work with staff and make sure that we make sure that we get an average time estimate. So we don't want the simplest application we've ever seen. We also don't want the most complex. What we want to do is account for reasonable average level of service, and average level of time that it takes to complete a process. And we did look at that at a positional and step-by-step basis. So, when we think about something like a planning application, it can certainly take months to from start to finish for that. But really what we wanted to do is focus on that time on task. How much time are you actually actively spending on that application to review it, to process it, to present it to council, and then ultimately to get it implemented. Next slide, please. So once we kind of establish time, then we look at cost. And the cost components that we look at when we're looking at full cost include direct costs, so the salary and benefits of those who are actively hands-on working on that application or that permit. We also look at departmental overhead, so looking at admin or management staff, as well as services and supplies associated with that particular department and employee. We also account for citywide overhead, so services provided by HR, finance, things like that. And you add all of that together, and that gets us the full cost associated with providing that service. And so for purposes of this study, when we looked at cost, we were using an FY23 budget, and we looked at the citywide overhead that was calculated in the city's current cost allocation plan. Next slide, please. And with this, I will turn it back over to Mike to talk about the third-party processing.
Thank you very much, Courtney. So third-party processing fees, what these really are credit card fees that our merchant service providers or MSPs charge every time somebody uses a credit card or a debit card. So back in April of 2021, the city had adopted this, And we had made a calculation as to how much it would cost to recover at a percentage, and that was 2.1% back in April of 2021. We said we'd come back to council every year if there were going to be a change. Last year, when we reviewed this for the 2021 data, in 2022, we found that the rate did not change, so we did not come back to council to change that rate. This year, when we studied the 2022 data, it appeared that the rate was a little bit low, so we needed to raise it to 2.3 in order to recoup the full amount. Every year, we'll come back to council. If there's a change in the rate, we'll review it, whether it goes up or down, and then we'll let council know of that change. That's why we're coming back to basically let you know that we recommend changing it to 2.3 for the full cost recovery at this point. Next slide, please. So for our proposed fee schedule impacts, we have different goals for different areas. Like for planning, for example, we're trying to recoup 100%, and this allows us to basically sustain this goal if we adopted the new fee schedule with the new fee study. I should also mention in the new fee schedule that there are some changes as well. For example, our conditional use permit, or commonly known as the CUP fee, we're actually moving away from the flat fixed fee to a deposit, and this should be benefiting small businesses. For recreation, for example, Courtney had studied this, and it looked like with the increase of 13%, we should be able to maintain the goal for recreation, which is a meager 30 to 40%, which is very in line with the average around the Bay Area. So we don't recoup the full cost for recreation. That would be too expensive. So we're trying to just maintain the original percentage that we were looking at here. And then, as I mentioned before, the processing fee, we're recommending moving that from 2.1% to 2.3% effective July 1 to basically align the average charge correctly. Next slide, please. So next steps, our recommendation is to hold a public hearing to receive the input regarding the adoption of the proposed updates to the City of MILLBRAE service and fee schedule for planning, recreation, and citywide fees. And at the conclusion of the public hearing, consider adopting a resolution approving the updates for an effective date as stated in the attached resolution. The effective dates generally July 1 for most of the fees, and it's July 8th for the planning fees. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sung. Councilman Kalin? Oh, okay. Any questions? If no questions at this time, I'm going to officially open the public hearing. And I have no speaker slips on this item. City Clerk, do we have anybody online?
There's no public speaker online.
Okay, keeping public hearing open, a couple of questions. Great report, really understandable. We can talk more and then I can close it. I just want to give the public a little bit more time in case they've heard something from us. Being on the other side of the chair, typically, I like to hear what council would say so that I could address my comments accordingly. So anyway, we're just keeping it open a little bit longer. All right, on the park and rec fees, I see that we're trying to keep it 30 to 40% cost recovery. Do we have a program that if we have some low-income families, they can help cover those costs as our costs go up? I've heard over the years that we're more expensive than other cities. It could be that other cities have stronger budgets than we do. But what can we do for lower income people? And is that a program that might be directed otherwise in fee schedule?
We'll have Hannah Moran.
Thank you.
Mayor, yes, we do have programs, but I'll have
welcome,
Ms.
Recreation
Moran.
Director Moran.
Yes, so we have an application process. So people who have lower income, they can apply. The scholarships usually go to, or actually right now, all of the scholarships go toward our in-house programs. So that would be mostly for youth, for camps, for sports. And yeah, so the lower income scholarships that we currently provide are for youth programming, for camps and sports. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And my other question was, I I know it came up in goal setting. I believe Councilwoman Pappen and I were on board with each other last year for a new set of fees, but I know those fees are not in this schedule. Would we have to do a whole new nexus study for those 3 fees, should they make it to the top of our goal setting?
What, can you
They
remind me,
are
Mayor, what
climate
3 fees?
resiliency, art, and childcare.
So it's unrelated to this, but to answer your question, yes, a nexus study
Okay.
would be required.
Okay. And then last question was scholarships. The councilwoman brought up again in goal setting, and I've heard it from other small businesses, the complications in getting a small business license, that they do have to go to multiple windows. It sometimes takes multiple days. All of that, I assume, is built into the fee schedule for a business plan. And this might have to wait for the next year on it, and it depends on our goal setting. But is there a way that we could simplify that process?
So the reason why it takes long is because when there's a business license, it needs to be reviewed by all of the departments. So we will be working on a way to streamline that and perhaps receive the application, process it, and then issue the license. So we don't have to have the person that is seeking the license go to each department themselves and get signed off. So
Excellent, thank you. I know that was a little bit out of that, but it has to do with, I looked at the fee schedule, it's $57 to $87 or something. I may be getting the business license fee wrong, but
and I will say our business license is very low compared to other cities.
absolutely.
It was well more than that.
So, well, thank you for that. Any other comments from council? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for having the contingency on scholarships because the economic gap is staggering within our city and this county. So every bit helps, and I know we're not making any profits. It's just greatly appreciated because it does bring our community together. So thank you all for including that.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I've given the public a little bit more time. If you've got any questions, Councilman Fung, and then I'm going to close public hearing.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Sung, and everybody else who worked on this together. One thing I wanted to bring to your attention, and I think I've talked about it in the past, is that as part of our planning fee and the building fee, would be valuable that we look into some sort of a program to streamline and bring about more transparency into our permitting process and the progress at which these permits and business licenses, as they traverse through the approval process, and give people more insight into, in terms of timeline, schedules, and what's requirements are, so as they move through the approval process. And some of these could be cost recovered based on, permit fees and part of the technology fees, for example. And that would bring about more, less questions and be more business friendly, within this whole paradigm. We've heard, I've met with the business community more than once, and one of the most common requests for area of improvement is more transparency into these permitting process. So, and I think this is one place where, if we can come up with a program, I'm sure between the homeowner communities as well as the business community, they're more than happy to pay a small fee just to make sure that they get better transparencies into this whole process. So I think that's something we can consider seriously in the next upcoming year.
Thank you, Councilman Fung. I don't see anything. Closing public comment, bringing it back to council if there's no further questions. If there could be a motion and a second.
So move.
Thank you, Councilman Fung.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Goodman. Last chance questions. City Clerk, please call the vote.
Councilmember Pappen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Councilmember Fung?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
Mayor Snyder?
Aye.
The motion to adopt a resolution approving updates to the City of MILLBRAE service and fee schedule for citywide fees, Planning Division and Recreation Department fees passed by a vote of 5-0.
And thank you, staff, and thank you, Matrix. Okay, final public hearing is agenda item number 10, public hearing on proposed adoption of Central County Fire Department, CCFD, fiscal year 2023-2024 master fee schedule for fire prevention services. and it is an action item. City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce our Fire Marshal, Ms. Christine Reed, for a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Schneider and City Council members. It's a pleasure to be before you tonight. We're bringing forward the Central County Fire Department Master Fee Schedule for your adoption. Next slide, please. The Master Fee Schedule was adopted by the Central County Fire Board on April 12th, 2023. So now we're coming before the City of MILLBRAE for your consideration of adopting the same fee schedule. The fee schedule is designed to have total cost recovery for personnel costs only. It doesn't come into play for fuel that our inspectors use. It doesn't come into play the computer programs that our inspectors or administrative staff uses. It is for the personnel cost to do such services. Because we have other accounts within our budget that handle all of those other kinds of things, it's really hard to estimate how much gas is used to go to a single inspection, that kind of thing, to have a 100% total recovery. But we feel that what we're doing with the personnel costs, we're getting the 100% recovery based on what we're doing. I'll explain a little bit more of how we were changing a couple of the fees to do that. So in general, our fee schedule, most of the fees stayed within about a 7 to 9% increase. Part of what we do is we evaluate our fees, the personnel who are included in providing those services, the time that it takes to provide those services, and we choose to reevaluate those when we're considering changes to the fee schedule, just to make sure that we are attributing the appropriate costs and the appropriate staff time to do that. So the customer is getting the appropriate fee, and it is not way above bounds of what people are being charged. So there are a couple of nuances with a couple of fees that we needed to increase. Some are service times and people that were involved, which did have a greater than 9%, maybe like 19%. I think one was 23%. Not totally outrageous, but it was something that with the additional time comes the additional cost. And when we have the changes, whether we're going up or down in fees, it is based on the influence of the staff time who is doing the work. So we try to be as consistent as possible with how we're doing these fees. And the majority of what we've done, again, is about the 7 to 9% increase. There are 5 new fees that we're presenting within this fee schedule. I'm going to go in them a little bit more in depth, but they are the hotels, motels, and apartments, 101 units to 300 units. Hotels, motels, and apartments, 301 units and greater. Additional construction in permit fee, additional construction inspection fee, photocopies fee, and non-sufficient funds return check fee. Next slide, please. So here is an example of what you have also received in your packet of our fee schedule. The first one we have is the additional construction inspection fee. This is meant to be a fee that is assessed when the inspections for construction permit that is associated, already paid for by a construction permit, they go beyond those numbers. So if a permit is allotted 2 or 3, depending on the permit, inspections, and that encompasses for the entire permit, when we're seeing a lot of developers that want us to come out and do inspections mid-construction because they want to progress with their construction. Some of our inspections have a timeline on it where they can't move forward with putting insulation or sheetrock on it until we do the inspection. So they want us to come out and do these inspections as we go. Well, that's not built into the permit as they initially pay for. So we were using a standard re-inspection fee. The re-inspection fee, though, is based on the fire prevention specialist providing that service, and the construction inspections are done by fire inspectors. So it wasn't apples to apples for the fee that was being charged and the fee to actually get that cost recovery. So this new fee actually uses the fire inspector rate so that we are now getting that cost recovery for those additional inspections that can be many within the course of a large building. So that's the additional fee. Next slide, please. Next is photocopies. I will say that this is more of an editorial inclusion because we always had this photocopies fee in our fee schedules, and for some reason we realized that it was missing. So not quite sure, to be honest, how that happened or when, but we're including it. It's the same cost. We're just wanting to reinsert it back into the fee schedule. The next is the non-sufficient fund return check fee. So when an applicant pays by check for, say, a construction permit, and we submit it to the bank for payment, and it gets returned to us, we are charged a return check fee. We have not been able to pass that cost on to the check holder because we didn't have it in our fee schedule. So this is included in the fee schedule now so that we have the ability to, whatever the bank charged us for the return check, we can pass that on to the check holder in addition to repayment of whatever the check amount was. So we're not bearing that cost that the permit or that the check holder created with that non-sufficient fund. Next slide, please. And these two are two new fees because we are seeing newer and larger hotels, motels, and apartment buildings. So if you see the three lines above the yellow lines, those were designated out by sections based on size of buildings and the time associated with that. So the larger the building, the more time it takes to do the inspection, therefore the higher the cost. What we're seeing upwards to over 400 unit apartment buildings being built in our jurisdiction. So part of what this is to do is to have transparency to our permits that these larger buildings are already accounting for the additional time, because we were doing these larger inspections and then the amount of time, because we were spending more time, we were having to add on more costs for our time. So the building owner was paying for more, but it's not reflected in our fee schedule. So again, going back to be transparent, this is a way for us to be upfront with what our permit fees are going to cost for the inspection. So again, you'll see it for 101 to 300 units and 301 to greater units. So with that, next slide, please. I just wanted to include this slide in. It has no changes other than the 7 to 9% increase. I just, for full inclusion of the entire fee schedule, I wanted to include this slide in it. Next slide, please. So at this point, staff is recommending that City Council hold a public hearing to receive the input regarding the proposed adoption of the CCFD fiscal year 23-24 master fee schedule for fire services, and subsequently consider approving the attached resolution to adopt the Central County Fire Department fiscal year 23-24 fee schedule into the city's master fee schedule with a July 1st effective date. And with that, I will take any of your questions.
Hello. Hi. For being here. Can you give us any idea about how many inspections are done on residential and hotels within our jurisdiction, kind of comparatively with
I'm sorry, so to repeat that, residential or hotels? I think I heard both.
kind of both, because, I mean, we have a few hotels. I know our neighbors to the south have a larger number.
Right.
I'm just curious as to dynamics.
So the hotels, motels we have in MILLBRAE, I believe, are 6. The residential for apartment buildings are probably about 200, 250 is going to be a rough guess for apartment buildings that we do, and then the 6 hotels.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, opening public hearing. City Clerk, do we have anyone online? I have no speaker slips.
No, there are no speakers.
Okay, and just to give the public time if they happen to be watching, Council, do we have any other questions? If not, I have one. It always amazes me that we still allow open burning. I don't like it from a solid waste perspective, from a dioxin perspective. Do we keep it there just in case someone has a valid reason?
So the open burning permit, like most of what you see in that list, that grouping of permits, those are permits out of the California Fire Code. So if someone was to request, and if we were going to approve it, that they would need to get a permit, and it has a permit cost associated with it. But honestly, in this area, between what we would allow and Bay Area air quality restrictions, people really don't apply for open burning. I think we had one many, many years ago for a luau for celebration. So we did, and we had certain parameters with how they needed to control, and that was more of a smoldering kind of burn. But we really don't get those. I think people are very much aware now that we don't allow it, and especially if we were, probably air quality wouldn't.
I drove home from Cal Cities a couple of weeks ago, and we came through the Delta, and I found 5 of them.
Yeah.
And some of them, again, with a composting hat, it's so much better to compost than burn. So anyway, but that's a great explanation. Yeah, we've got it there for those luau's. I hope people have luau's. That is, and then I'm a little confused. So the rate, is it per unit in an apartment building based on that range? Or it's one fee, whether you're 301 or 500 units?
It is the latter. So it is a grouping of the time that it takes to do the building inspection. Okay. So it's just as we get into larger buildings, some of the more components are take more time simply to just walk the building, right? So it is not a per unit cost.
All right, thank you. City Clerk, last call on comments from the public. Closing public hearing, bringing it back to council. Any further comments, questions? I think you did a good job.
Thank you.
If I could have a motion in a second.
So move. Second.
Motion by Councilman Fung, second by Vice Mayor Goodman. City Clerk, if you could call the vote.
Councilmember Pappen? Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Councilmember Fung?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
Mayor Snyder?
Aye.
The motion for adoption of the Central County Fire Department fiscal year 2023-2024 master fee schedule for fire prevention services passed by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, City Clerk, and thank you, CCFD. Next up, existing business. This is agenda item number 11. This is review of public art element compliance with the MILLBRAE Gateway project conditions of approval. I hope that council has read the agenda item. I appreciate how complete it is. And this is an issue that has been floating out there. It is using the council protocol that a council member can ask for an agenda item. And really, I'm going to put the ball in Councilwoman Pappen's court at her request.
Presentation, please.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor Goodman, members of the City Council. I'm Harry Burrows. I'm the city's contract project manager for the projects around the TOD area. So I'm going to give a brief presentation tonight on the public art elements, one in particular within the Gateway project. So this first slide shows all of the public art within the Gateway project, but tonight's topic is really limited to this item that's circled in this oval in the upper right-hand corner, which is the art element that is called the street sign spheres. And the reason they're called street sign spheres are because they're actually metal spheres made out of street sign material, reflective street sign material. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the initial concept for the spheres that were proposed by the developer Republic Urban for the project. And there were 6 of them that were proposed, 4 of them aerial mounted on these pedestals, and 2 of them mounted on concrete pedestals at the entrance to the affordable building. Next slide, please. So here are the spheres as presented to the City Council during the final review of the art at the November 9th, 2021 City Council meeting. So the spheres are illustrated here with transportation-related text. And at this meeting, there was some discussion by the City Council and Republic's art consultant that resulted in a desire to explore more specific historical MILLBRAE-related theme for text on these spheres. Still transportation-related, but more MILLBRAE historical-related. Next slide, please. And so this slide shows the actual spheres as installed. So the spheres are embossed with the names of Republic Urban's employees who were instrumental in the vision, design, and construction of the project. These do, however, deviate from what was previously presented and discussed at the November 9th City Council meeting. And because of this, we're bringing this item forward at the request of a City Council member to review the art. So that concludes my presentation.
For the benefit of my colleagues, the tape recording of the previous meeting, the developer gave assurances that they would reflect certain aspects. This is a bait and switch that we are looking at right now. This was not what we agreed to. This is not what the developer assured us would be. This is basically something that would probably look very nice at Urban Republic's offices, but it is not reflective of MILLBRAE. Public art, as was approved as a part of the development agreement too, was to be specific as to MILLBRAE, not the developers, not the people that put this forward here. This is something that city councils review, and they review in detail. And again, the tape recording and the assurances given at the last council meeting, or the last time this was brought up, was that the developer would do what the city council asked. He has not done that here. This is something we should not accept because it is a bait and switch. This is just basically, putting people's names on the art here. We all went to the hotel opening. Even within the hotel, there was reflective artwork of transportation, of MILLBRAE. I mean, it was great, and we didn't even ask the hotel to make those improvements to this. So once again here, we as a council need to really show that we respect what was said, what was promised, and what should be, not a bait and switch. So I've asked that this be brought to us here because this is not at all what was represented. It was shocking when it went up, and it was expressed at that very moment. This is not what the council approved. This is not what the developer said he would present. Therefore, it is not compliant with the development agreement.
Thank you. I'm being promoted to panelist. 1 second here. Okay. Other council comments, and then I have some comments. Could you please pull up slide 10 in that packet? I think it's page 10.
Mayor, if you could describe to us what you're looking for.
It shows the other artwork. In the agenda item, in agenda item 11, I think it's page 10 on there. And in the meantime, we do have a public.
Shows the area.
I do see the one hand raised. If we could just scroll up there. I believe that at the time this artwork was going through, Councilwoman Pappen and I are the last of the council members from that time period. And we approved a lot of art. Yeah, if you scroll back a little bit, bring it down a little bit, and look at the bicycle. I'm only bringing this up because this is what we approved too, but in reality, the bicycle is pure silver. And if you scroll down a little bit farther to the bears, the concept fountain is there. Please go back. There you go. To the fountain. The bears are actually a little bit different. And if you look at the train mural concept, it's a concept image. It's not exactly what we have there. I understand the councilwoman's concern, but I also know that our staff and our legal fees are mounting on this particular issue. And Mr. Van Avery can speak for the cost on there. As someone who wanted to be an artist and got accepted to UCLA for it, but didn't quite have what it took, I understand that art evolves. And I look at all of these images and it evolves. as part of the process. What I remember from our discussions was yet another piece of artwork that became the fountain. And it was going to have all the places around the world that you would go. And what I remember saying is, we are MILLBRAE. We are not a place you simply pass through to get to somewhere else. And I guess what that means is that the names to me on there are reflective of MILLBRAE. We took a parking lot that had been a parking lot for 20 years and turned it into an amazing project with housing, with affordable housing, with new retail, with new biotech opportunities, 400 new housing, 25% low and affordable housing on there. It is something to be proud of. And the question is, how much time do we keep spending on an issue? Is it exactly what was said at that meeting? I frankly don't remember, and I didn't go back, but none of these pieces are exactly as it was presented to us at those council meetings, and I love them all. In addition, outside of the developer agreement, we have the Harriet Tubman Freedom Threshold piece and the small mural that was going to be between the what we call Building 5B, which is the larger of the apartment complexes, and the MILLBRAE overpass. We're getting I think it's a 400-foot mural on there, although I am understanding that there are complications because the surface is really difficult and the artist is really doing her best job. I just question council. I hear the councilwoman's concerns, but gosh darn, we've gotten a lot out of it. And what I would love us to do is to get our community culture arts group working on activities. We stand together with Republic Urban and getting the retail and commercial space filled, and we make that the newest neighborhood in MILLBRAE. With that, I'm going to ask Mr. Van Avery. Go ahead.
I'm not quite done, Madam Mayor, before we
go
get to
ahead.
public comments. So I disagree here. What you've presented is artwork. There's a concept here. I did go back and listen to the last meeting. It was very specific. And if the city of MILLBRAE wants to say, hey, developers, you can come in, we'll accept concepts and you can do whatever you want, I don't think that's the standard we want to present here. This was very, very specific. And the amount of time, effort, and attorney's fees could have been easily avoided by the developer had he complied with the assurances that were given. That did not happen here. And this council needs to set standards. This is clearly, and I question, I may need to take a break for a second to talk to the mayor and legal counsel before we proceed, because I just need to clarify one thing. Can we do that?
Okay, let's go ahead and it is 9:02. Let's give everybody a break. I've been here since 4:15, so let's go ahead 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Yeah. All right, we'll get back when y'all come back. It is 9. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, City Clerk. Welcome back. It is 9:13, and we are on agenda item number 11. We are at council comments, opening it up for public comment. Michael Van Avery has his hand raised. Mr. Van Avery.
Good afternoon, or excuse me, good evening, Mayor, Council, great city of MILLBRAE. Thanks for having me here. First of all, to the issue at hand, I think it's pretty well known public facts that we've invested over $500 million in the city of MILLBRAE. And I'm proud to say that we invested over $500,000 in public art. And I think we did an outstanding job. It's, I think, the envy of the Bay Area right now in terms of a public art program. For example, we had San Jose State students and VTA staff out here recently taking notes, remarking on all the thoughtful locations that we provided this art. And, we're extraordinarily proud of that. Art is in the eye of the beholder. We, as noted, we did, I think, an outstanding job of representing all the concept art products. And we allowed our artists to have the First Amendment right of free speech, which I'm sure most of you are aware of. And so if we're accused of a bait and switch, then I'm okay with that, because I would say that I'm good with the First Amendment and free speech. And when the artists came to us and they asked us for, guidance and what they had heard in the meetings with the guidance of the city council, the artists took the interpretations and they created the arts. In the case of these spheres, I would argue that those people on those spheres put their heart, soul, and dedication into the city of MILLBRAE. And they, by fact, are an extension of MILLBRAE, an extension of a transit-orientated development, which represents all the great things in this city. Street signs have many names. That's the whole point. There's names of people on street signs, there's last names, there's all kinds of ways to depict things, people, and places in street signs. But Mayor, but Councilmember Pappen, I take great exception to the great insult that you've provided. You've essentially called us a liar, and that's okay. I've dealt with you over the years. I've learned to respect you and take the high ground. I'll take the high ground here as well. But please, do not think that we've tried to bait and switch anybody when we've invested $500 million in art. More importantly, this issue needs to end. We need to move on, and we need to spend time, resource, and we need a united front to attract tenants, people, places, hotel guests, all of these things which benefit the project, it benefits MILLBRAE, it benefits the county, and we've got a lot more work to do. So if we want to spend time after this, if the city council so desires, I'll be happy to spend more legal time on this matter, because this is a free speech matter. And we have delivered everything to the T of exactly what, and lived up to every expectation of our development agreement. We delivered our affordable housing ahead of time and all of our milestones, despite the pandemic, despite floods from rainstorms. We have endured all of that, and we delivered this beautiful project. So for the rest of the city council, I urge you to please let us move forward to reject this item that I don't even know the remedy. You want me to come back, go back to the artist, tear it out, redo it? That's absurd. That's absurd. So I'd appreciate it out of the respect for what for
Mayor,
us
as
obligation
a question
and
of fairness, the 3
Okay,
minutes is up.
thank you, Mr. Van Avery. Okay, council, any other hands raised, public comment? All right, closing public comment, bringing it back to council discussion.
Real quick, Mark.
Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To be clear for the record, we've sought a legal opinion. This is not a free speech argument in any way, shape, or form. Mr. Van Avery was very passionate. I understand that a lot has gone into this, but this is not a free speech argument. This is public art. If it was at his home or anywhere else, then it's free speech. But it is not, for the record, a free speech presentation. I brought this back because there were assurances made here. This was not what was discussed. And I do think that the council, this artwork is not going to hold up everything that Mr. Van Avery has suggested there. This is something that he gave assurances to the council Those assurances were not met. This is part of the development agreement, and it does not comply. That is my point.
Thank you. Councilwoman. Council? So this is listed as an action item. Council, go ahead, Councilwoman Kalen.
I mean, just to offer a suggestion, you know, I know there's concerns with setting precedents for the future, and things like that. We also are, you know, pretty much at completion and, you know, starting over might be much. You know, some art has more endurance than others. These might be something not as long lasting. Maybe we could look at something like, you know, let them be for a few years, and as they age, you know, look at a certain time frame, and then, you know, in a couple of years, redo them. And as we redo them, do them in the guidelines we originally suggested. I don't know if that would be a compromise.
Young, did you? Okay, if you didn't, our Vice Mayor? All right. City Manager, please go
Well, if I
ahead.
may, Mayor, so in terms of this is an action item, and as you will note, there's no recommendation from the city council, so I'm going to speak here to try to just help this process along. So first and foremost, the question is, you know, from the city council, given the fact that you just heard the presentation and you heard from the applicant and discussion of the council, you know, the question that staff is really seeking here, is this an issue that you want us to pursue, or is this something that is acceptable, you know, to the majority of the city council? And if that is the case, then that is the action that, you know, the vote would be, the question, the second, and the vote would be either this is acceptable or it isn't acceptable. If it is not acceptable, then we would come back with recommendations on how to further remediate compliance. If it is acceptable and you accept the art as is and installed in the field, then this matter would be closed.
Just have a procedural question, if you don't mind. Is this discussion, first of all, in terms of the process, where the project is, does this need to have a resolution in order to have a final inspection? What's the story here in terms of that just completion process of that project?
Yeah, and so we haven't had final approval of the project.
You mind coming to the mic?
So
Yep.
we do not have final certificate of occupancy or final site approval. So this is something that, again, before we issue final occupancy and final approval, all conditions must be adhered to.
So what I'm hearing is this needs to be resolved one way or another in order to obtain final approval. Is that correct?
That would be our recommendation.
Okay. Legal? Is it not a free speech?
We have not looked at this in depth. I think there are some issues with enforcement. I think the direction I was looking for from the council is remedy. I think, well, it would be really up to staff if you could give final approval. I think there's a series of steps that happened. There's some of which are outlined in the staff report in terms of how the art process through the city council. So I would want to look at that and look at what, you know, how directly that affected the condition. But I don't want to give you an opinion in open session. I will look at it and advise you confidentially if that is your desire. That's really all I can offer at this point.
I guess a question, no, I guess just a question I pose to us as a council, given the concerns that have come up, it sounds like there could be significant legal fees and time to address this if we choose that it's not acceptable. And I guess my question is, how much are we willing to spend and how much time are we willing to spend on this issue in light of other city needs and our resources.
Thank you, Councilman Cahalan. Other comments?
Just, to that point, I think, yes, we can. There'll be a time that we actually do choose litigation and additional legal costs to address an issue. Is this that time? I don't think so. I think just because as I look at the names, those names can be residents of MILLBRAE. Those names could reflect veterans who are housed in the veterans housing there. I mean, and so we're talking about art. And so, and to your point, in 5 years, 10 years, if those spheres have to be replaced, that's something that would come back and we can address it then. But I don't see this being the moment in time where we have to or should choose to go down a path of additional legal costs when we have other issues within our city that we can direct those funds to.
If we can,
Yeah.
new information as
Yeah,
opposed, we've heard your
So, yeah,
argument.
my question, yeah, thank you. My question is, this is not the only, I agree with my colleagues here, but just to be clear for the record, there are other aspects before the final occupancy, I guess you call it?
Yeah, just to add some clarity to what I stated earlier, or what was stated earlier. So in terms of certificates of occupancy, the residential building, the building 5B, the apartment building, we've issued temporary certificate of occupancy, but not final on that building. So that's a step still to be done. But there's still some site work that's remaining. And so the site permit has not been closed out. And there's some issues that we're waiting on for PG&E and others outside of our control that are probably going to be multiple months before we get those resolved. So that gives you an idea of some of the timing.
Yeah, okay. And I just wanted to clarify that. So, I mean, I see where the council's going here, and that's fine.
Vice Mayor? Oh. Okay, council, so this is an action item. It's whether to go forward or whether to say Republic Urban didn't do something exactly as stated. I would argue that almost every art piece we saw in conception and is slightly different, except for maybe the two dogs and the horse on that. But I can't make the motion.
Point of order, yeah, there needs to be a motion.
There needs to be a motion.
Move that we proceed. I think we've made our point as far as the record here. So we don't want to make further expenditures. So how do we word this exactly?
No action would.
No action? Oh, okay. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Is there a second?
So the motion is no action taken.
No, point of clarification, Mayor, if I may. So
Please.
the motion is to direct no further action on the compliance of the installed public art related to the spheres.
I think we've made a record, yeah.
Okay, all right, no further action, I'll second that.
Motion by
Would we-
Councilwoman, hold on, Angie, I'll get you. Motion by Councilwoman Pappen, second by Councilman Fung. Comments, please.
Would we want to add to that, that when the spheres needed to be replaced, they be done so based on the original guidelines?
My only comment to that is probably none of us will be here at that time.
Yeah.
So we're.
I kind of got that. That was a nice try, though.
I think, like all street signs, and they're out in the wind and the sun, it will, but all art, murals especially, have to get some touch up now and then, but that's for a future council. And I'm not sure if the developer agreement means art in perpetuity is under the hands of city council. That's a whole other argument. And maybe that's something we learn the next time we get to do a developer agreement, since so much is taken out of our hands now. So, motion second, no other questions. City Clerk, could you call the question?
Councilmember Pappen.
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan.
Aye.
Councilmember Fung.
Aye?
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Aye.
Mayor Snyder.
Aye.
The council directed no further action regarding public art element compliance with the MILLBRAE Gateway Project's conditions of approval by the vote of 5-0.
Thank you, City Clerk. And thank you, Mr. Burrows. I know you spend a lot of time on this. I would like a copy of the map of the art to be sent to the Cultural Arts Advisory Committee so that they can be working on that art walk, although that's not in their work plan. Hint, hint on that. Next up is agenda item, still existing business, agenda item 12, budget study session for fiscal year 2023, 2024, operating and capital improvement budget, what we call CIP budget. This is an informational article. And City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Sung, City Finance Director, for a presentation.
Thank you, City Manager Williams. Okay, good evening again, Honorable Mayor and Vice Mayor and City Council. Today we'll be talking about the operating budget study session. Last time, 2 weeks ago on April 25th, we gave you a preview of the preliminary general fund budget, and today we're going to talk about the rest of the operating budget, go into a little bit about the CIP, a little preview, and then 2 weeks from now we'll actually go into the CIP budget study session as well. Next slide, please. So what we're going to talk about is a recap of the general fund, the actual departments, as well as the recreation enterprise funds and the schedule. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So just a recap of the general fund. The general fund's revenues are $39.5 million. Expenditures are $39.5 million. Our additional reserves are going to go up by about $500,000, and that's based off of our 15% reserve policy. And so next slide, please. Just a really quick recap. Our funding for the general fund is pretty typical in the property tax sector, which is usually the largest section for most cities. 39% of our general fund is from property tax, and also you'll see, which is a little bit more unusual, is 24% of our general fund is from TOT, or transient occupancy tax. At our height, it was about 28%, and then it declined greatly during the beginning of the pandemic, and we are recovering right now. As you can see, we're getting back up to a more healthy number, and it's at 24% for next year. Next slide, please. So just going into the details a little bit further, you can see our property tax is going up at a pretty steady pace. One thing of note is the portion of the property tax known as the VLF, or property tax in lieu of the vehicle license fee. That is kind of a little bit more haphazard. And that's actually based off of a complex formula from the state that depends on how many basic aid schools you have in the actual county. The state's usually a little bit late to pay us. It's about a 14-month delay. Sometimes it's a larger number, sometimes it's a smaller number, but it also does increase over time. The other thing I wanted to point out is the TOT itself. You can see that the actuals for the TOT for last year was about $4.9 million. That's more than double what it was in 2021, which it was about $2.3 million. As you can see, we're estimating the TOT to go back to a more regular number at $8.4 million this year, and we're projecting out it to be about $9.6 million for next year. Now, bear in mind that includes Measure N, which passed in November of 2022, which increased the TOT from 12% to 14%. And also we have a new hotel, the Residence Inn, that's also included in there as well. Next slide, please. So you can see the different aspects of property tax. It's actually composed of many different elements. Most of them are pretty standard. You can see that the secured portion is been going up at a pretty steady pace. And then, as I had mentioned before, the property tax in lieu is a little bit haphazard, and that's really due to the state paying us late. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about the general fund distribution for the expenditures as well. Just a quick recap from last time. More than half is in public safety, 27% for fire, 25% for PD. You can see that Public Works is composed of 9% and 6%. Parks is actually part of Public Works. And then 14% for general government and 13% for community development. Next slide, please. So for the expenditures, what I wanted to kind of highlight is there's a couple of interesting things, like for example, CCFD, our fire service, is going up by about 6.2%. But you'll see that that is actually offset a little bit by our UAL, our unaccrued actuarial liabilities. That went down. Basically, CalPERS had a really good year in 2020. 2021, that doesn't translate until 2 years later, so you won't actually see that until 23-24. So that actually decreased the UAL by about 400,000. The other thing I wanted to point out is community development is increased. We're looking at about 5.3 million and 5.2 million in expenditures next year, but that's really due to development activities. And this is all offset by the increase in revenues that we're seeing in both charges for services and licenses and permits. Next slide, please. Just a really quick recap. We don't actually get much of the property tax, the ad valorem. The 1% for the property tax, most of the share actually goes to the schools. More than half goes to the different schools. We get about a little bit less than 16%. The county gets a little bit more than a quarter, about 28%. Next slide, please. So what it means in practicality is on a $2 million home that's assessed at $2 million, the ad valorem 1% would be a total of $20,000. MILLBRAE only gets a little bit less than $3,200. So it's not a very large amount. Next slide, please. Same with sales tax. Our sales tax is 9.375%. Most of it, the lion's share, goes to the state. About 6% goes to the state in total. About 1.375% goes to transit, 1% to the county, and we get our meager 1% as well. Next slide, please. So this kind of lists all of the different agencies that actually are a portion of the sales tax for MILLBRAE. Next slide, please. Also, quick recap for capital from the general fund. We're looking at about $800,000 for streets and parks. We're also looking at receiving in about 2.7 from the other funds. Our transfer out total is comprised of various items, which includes recreation. It's about $1 million for recreation. As I had mentioned in the previous item for the fees, we're looking to recoup about 30 to 40% for recreation. We do subsidize that fund by about $1 million, so that is something there. Also, I'd like to point out the police remodel fund is a little bit more than $250,000. This is the last year for 23-24. After that, that debt will be retired, so that will come off the books. And to round it out, about $360,000 for field license and about $870,000 for storm drain. Next slide, please. Okay, so on to the budget proposals. What we're really looking at here is so far we're looking at adding one total FTE, and that's for a very much needed city engineer / CIP manager to help with that aspect. We're also looking at assistance for housing. That's just a small contract. Some additional intern support for public works. One of the bigger items is the objective design standards at $500,000 for housing, and then a very small reclassification in admin. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about the different departments in a little bit more detail. Next slide. So general government actually consists of multiple departments, and that's the city council, city attorney's office, city manager's office, city clerk's office, finance and admin, which includes HR. We're looking at a total of 16 FTEs. We're currently contracting out the attorney's office. There's no new positions recommended. We're just recommending a reallocation. Next slide, please. Community development. This is composed of planning, building, and code enforcement. We're looking at 10 total FTEs. We're currently contracting out building and permit. And as I'd mentioned before, the increased expenditures are due to increased development, and those are offset by increased revenues. Next slide, please. Recreation. This is comprised of many units: adults, youth, sports, senior, community garden classes, arts, preschool, rentals, special events, and summer camp. Total of 7 FTEs. Our new recreation center is fully operational. The grand opening was in June of 2022. And as we're looking at this, we're looking at increases in part-time staffing, and this is due to the increased demand of programs that we're seeing. Next slide, please. Public Works is comprised of 3 different units: engineering and administration, utilities and operations, and parks. We're looking at a total of 59.5 FTEs. This is where we're recommending a new position, and that is of the city engineer / CIP manager, and also some additional part-time funding for interns. Next slide, please. So 2 things I wanted to mention are for our one-time costs. We're looking at a one-time transfer of $500,000 from the general fund balance to the general fund reserve. That's because our reserve policy is 15%. It's going up from $5.5 million to $6 million. Also, we're looking at recommending a $1.1 million loan from the general fund to the Recreation Center Capital Project Fund to be repaid yearly within 10 years from revenue from the MILLBRAE preschool contract. Just as a quick aside, in the beginning of the pandemic, we were looking at a gap of about $11.5 million, and with our city manager's leadership, we were able to cobble together multiple sources. We were very fortunate. We got $2 million. Thank you, Kevin Mullen. We also got additional insurance proceeds, as well as sold a couple of properties. We cobbled together a lot of different funds together, and we were able to reduce it from 11.5 to about 1.1. And we had originally looked at using the proceeds from the preschool contract to help pay off part of that. And so that contract just about covers that 1.1 million over the next 10 years. So this should be a good offset. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about what recreation.
Mr. Sung, question. Council, I didn't ask you, we're doing 2 parts, both operating and capital. Do you want to hold off questions for both till the end, or do operating right now while it's fresh? Operating fresh. Mr. Sung, would you mind just holding off? Councilwoman Pappen.
Yes, so real quick, when are we going to open the preschool? Is the funds going out or coming? That was hard to determine, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you asked, when is the preschool going to open?
Yeah, I mean, because you're accounting it as an expenditure.
Yeah, no, because so they've been waiting for the state final permit, and the state is waiting for the installation of the play apparatus equipment in the plaza. So, Hannah, do you know what the timing is when that will be installed? So that's what's been hanging up the state certification, the state permit, is the play apparatus.
Yeah, so the equipment's supposed to arrive in the next 3 weeks. And then it'll take a little bit to install it. That being said, preschool usually would start in September. So they would be probably moving in. Right now, we're looking at them moving in August and opening up in September.
Great. Okay.
So that's the timeline currently, and we can give an update if that changes.
Fantastic. And then the final question, are we budgeting enough for the objective design standards? We want to get those done.
So, Andy Mogensen, yes, as a matter of fact, I will disclose the city council.
We're going to send out an RFP.
Well, hold on, Andy,
Go ahead.
because I was going to say, it's a little bit, you're probably wondering, okay, we've got all this, but we've got these goals up here, and city manager, you're going to come back to us what these costs are. So this is where we do have funding in the budget, and we know we've got 39.5 million in our budget, right? We've got fixed cost expenditures, labor, et cetera. So we do have it plugged in to this and some other things. And so what we'll do is, once we get the goals, we'll determine where we are, what the priorities of the council, and then shift things around if we need to, or be able to fund those. So
Yeah, I think there's some commonality that we
I
want,
think
we want those.
I just, this is one of those things where we've got to make some assumptions.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't want to make assumptions and get ahead of the council until we finish some things, but it is built in.
Good. I just wanted to make sure we were heading in that direction. Thank you.
I want to give again a huge shout out when the vice mayor and I, who were the budget subcommittee meeting, met last week to find out from the debt we were going to be in under the rec center to come back with only $1.1 million, especially after the $12 million that the county was going to loan us at a low interest loan. That fell through with COVID. It is really, really fantastic. And to all staff involved, including all the recreation staff, the council recreation subcommittee, all the work done. When I saw that number, I couldn't believe it last week, and I couldn't be prouder of all of you for that. And to the public, we brought in a building that was destroyed, didn't have enough insurance coverage because it couldn't have enough insurance coverage, got it built, and we've got cities around us building things that are $20 million more expensive, but we got it done in design build. That is a huge, huge accomplishment. So thank you to all of you involved and council. Now, Mr. Sung, please go back to the capital improvement budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Next slide, please. So this slide over here actually shows what the budget looks like, the proposed budget looks like for both recreation, water, and sewer. In recreation, we're looking at about 2.2 million for fiscal year 23-24, and same for revenues and expenditures. For the water fund, oh, if you could go back, please. Thanks. For the water fund, what we're looking at is about 12 million in proposed revenues, about 17.3 million in expenditures. What you'll see is we're looking to program in about $8.4 million in capital expenditures. We have a beginning estimated fund balance of about 8.4 million, and afterwards we'll look at an ending estimated fund balance of about 3 million. For the sewer fund, our revenues are estimated at about 15 million, and then the proposed expenditures, 27.2 million. We're looking at about $15.2 million worth of sewer capital. Are estimating we're starting out at about 23.9 million for the beginning fund balance for 23-24, and ending with about 11.7 million. We'll go into a lot more detail at the next session on May 23rd to give you the various projects for water, sewer. We'll also talk about storm, streets, and parks as well. But just wanted to kind of give you what the numbers kind of look like right now. Next slide, please. So just a really quick aside about the recreation fund. During the pandemic, obviously everybody was infected. As soon as we saw the reduced revenues that we were anticipating, we went ahead and took action and controlled the expenditures. And we've been doing a pretty successful job at doing that. And with the opening of the new MILLBRAE Rec Center, we basically looked at what the demand would look like as we're exiting the pandemic. So we aren't recommending any new staffing, new full-time staffing right now, but part-time staffing, we believe we're going to need some additional part-time staffing because the demand has been going up and has been going back to normal. So with that said, recreation's moderately recovered pretty well, and it's continuing along that track. Next slide, please. So as I had mentioned before earlier, we're looking at using some of the funding from the general plan update fund, Fund 532, for the objective design standards, and we'll come back as we get an update on that as well. Next slide, please. Water and sewer funds. So as mentioned before, for water and sewer, we noticed something really interesting that happened during the pandemic. Residential went up and commercial went down, and that's kind of to be expected because people were at home. Now the pendulum has started to swing on the other side as residential is starting to go down and commercial is starting to go up as well, back to more of a normal distribution. As I had mentioned, we have large and critical capital projects that are coming in for the next few years, especially the next year in 23-24. And we're anticipating adding in an additional FTE to be funded by water and sewer, and that's the city engineer / CIP manager. Next slide, please. So with that, the next scheduled meeting at the May 23rd session, we're planning to present the capital budget study session in full with the details of the major projects that we're looking at. So we'll give you a listing of all of those as well. And then at June 5th, we're looking at going to the Planning Commission for the review of the CIP. And we're estimating around June 13th, we're looking to adopt the proposed operating budget and the capital budget. And as the city manager had explained before, we need to get a budget adopted before July 1st. So we want to make sure we have plenty of time. So June 13th appears to be a pretty good date for that. And with that, I am open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sung. Any questions on the capital improvement budget? Councilman Kalin?
The new position around water and sewer, is that funded through the water and sewage usage fees, or is that a separate budget item since it's staffing?
It's funded through a combination. A portion of it's funded through water, a portion's funded through sewer, and then some other funds as well, because I believe it's going to be overseeing a bunch of other things. So part of it's actually going to be funded through the general fund as well.
And that doesn't impact the regular increases or any other increases in the water sewer bills?
So the sewer and the water rate studies have already been done. So those rate studies are moving forward as scheduled. This is just something we're looking at to include in there to help with the projects.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Something I should have brought up under operational, at least I think it is. We, during goal setting, talked about how much could be done by code enforcement, and we have one person in code enforcement. City manager, I know the budget is tight. I know years ago, then Councilman or then Mayor Wayne Lee and I tried to get an additional position for code enforcement. But do you think it's needed, and do you think there's an opportunity so that our code enforcement person is doing a great job, but he's all by himself?
Yeah, he does do a great job, and could we use a code enforcement officer under him? Yeah, we could, and it's something that we are actually looking at. So I don't have an answer for you now, but it is high on our priority list to, fill that position.
Okay, if you could bring that.
And add a new position, I should say.
And the other question, and my guess is that the data isn't soon enough, but I don't know why I get Burlingame see, click, fix reports, but I get a lot of the MILLBRAE ones, and I see staffers signing on. I see Ms. Bleeker assigning things out, and I see things getting done. I imagine eventually that tool we can use as a budgeting tool to know if we need more of this kind of staff to do this kind of problem. And I'm guessing it's premature, but maybe it isn't. Are we seeing something there that we should be looking at for future staffing?
I mean, that's the nice thing about the metrics. It will provide us with data that we can now look and see, what is the highest demand, where do we get the complaints, and we'll verify things for us.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And when the time comes, if we can bring that back as a council informational interview, I think it'll be helpful for the public. I think the public is using it quite a bit. My guess is we could be getting more from them.
Yeah, we actually have a quarterly report scheduled for the next council meeting, actually.
Excellent. You mean if I read that Friday update, I would see that? And then Gina got the objective design guidelines. I think that's what I have. No other comments. This is informational. And I would just say thank you on that.
You're welcome.
Okay, we are at 9:51. We can go into council comments, and who would like to go first? I feel like a school teacher. Okay, Vice Mayor, you're going first.
I have no comment. Thank you.
Okay.
I can go. Just a few things here. Peninsula Clean Energy, just to bring to the awareness of our community here, PG&E is, again, raising their rate in June 2023 on their T&D, transmissions and distribution. Just wanted to make sure our residents are aware that Peninsula Clean Energy is now actually providing 98% of the overall energy being used in San Mateo County that we're consuming. But electricity generation is only roughly 33%, a third of your monthly bill, where the other 67% mostly coming from transmission and distribution. So, between conservation of energy and, doing more on-site solar generation and coupled with battery operations that help reduce the load on our grid during peak hour, it's probably the best way to bring to a lower energy consumptions and lower utility bills in general. And we do wanted to encourage everyone to look into more solar generations, whether it's in their home or on a larger scale in some of the multi-residentials and mixed-use building, coupled with battery operation so that we can build more power resiliencies. Because in case we have blackouts, just like when we did, we have some extreme weather or atmospheric river conditions, these, so having these batteries operations within these sites would give us more power resilience. We also participated a couple of weeks, I think it was a week ago, that attended a Live Move breakfast fundraiser. Personally, I was inspired by the school teacher who spoke in front of all of us. We had 3 children and were experiencing homelessness, and how Life Move was able to, provide them with timely assistance and able to save his family from having to be on the streets. And so I just want the public to understand that, homelessness is happening all around us in ways and to folks who we may not be able to imagine that they're experiencing those issues. And, giving them the timely help and the assistance they need is so important. And throughout our meeting with the homelessness subcommittee, we also had gained more insight into our homeless population here in MILLBRAE. And we understand how important this issue to our residents and to our business owners as well, and how it impacts them. And we're looking into strategies in getting our homelessness population all the services that they need, whether it might be job placement or temporary housing. Some could benefit from detox or substance abuse rehabilitations, and or otherwise just finding a way to help them re-enter society in a more productive way. So our goal is to ensure that we continue to manage our homelessness population and work towards gradually achieving functional zero homelessness here in MILLBRAE. So lastly, Mr. Goodman and I are on the interview subcommittee, and the Park and Rec Commission, the Youth Advisory, the Cultural Art, Community Enhancement Advisory are all having openings, and we're actively interviewing candidates beginning this Friday, I believe.
Internal.
Right, but as we look forward to interviewing and reviewing applications coming in, and my goal here is to encourage our members of our communities to join these wonderful commissions and committees. And this is your way to serve your community and change the community in ways that benefits everyone in our next generation. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Kalen.
Yes. It's been really wonderful to connect with more of the organizations in our community and in our county. I also attended the Life Moves breakfast, and very moving speakers, and really wonderful to hear more about what Life Moves is doing throughout the county. One of the speakers spoke to how Life moves lives, and the speakers really spoke to that being their experience. Pardon me. I also attended Hip Housing's luncheon, and they had a huge focus on how they're incorporating trauma-informed services throughout all of their work. And I think that's something for all of us to keep on our forefront, especially as we're enhancing and increasing the work that we're doing with the unhoused in our community. We can bring that here as well. As Councilmember Fung said, we had our first meeting of the homelessness subcommittee with this iteration of that committee. Pardon me, I have something in my throat. Thank you. But we had folks from Life Moves, from MILLBRAE City staff. We had Chief Allen with us. And it was great to get the conversation started, talking about what are our main issues, what are some of the goals we can look towards, what are some of the gaps that we're seeing and we can work on. I'm so sorry.
Allergy season.
Goodness.
You okay? We can
Yeah,
come
it's just
back.
not going away. It's just.
Let's come back.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman, no worries. I've been like that all day.
Tag in. Okay, thank you very much. I also attended the HIP Housing Luncheon, which was fantastic. Managed Lanes is also still promoting our equity program, so you can get discounts on the Clipper card and the Fast Track. And hopefully we can get those going more so. I'd like to congratulate Fiddler's Green on their special event. It was a wonderful event and fundraiser for the colon cancer. I know it kind of caught people off guard, but it was a really good event this weekend. And congratulations to everyone on Measure A passing. Woo-hoo! A lot of work and effort went into that. I really want to compliment everyone, those of us who worked on the campaign, all the volunteers, knocking on doors, phone calling, everything. It was really a well-run campaign and well worth it. So thank you to the voters of MILLBRAE. I think they had like a 28% turnout, which is really good for an off election. And this will allow us to maintain funding for our schools. City Council endorsed it in total, and so that is just a wonderful effort on behalf of the city of MILLBRAE and reflects our really belief in the schools and everything that's done here. And I do want to emphasize just what Council Member Fung said, because I am processing scholarship applications. It is amazing. It's always amazing. The stark income gap in our community. And there are people living in our community, attending our schools, that make less than $15,000 a year. So it is a reality, and it is something many of us look to support through various programs, but it is all about community. We look forward to working together for the success and opportunities for everyone.
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, folks. For me, it has been a very busy. Oh, Angie, are you ready? Go ahead.
Excuse me.
Thank you. I think I'm better now. I also attended the Earth Day event. It was really wonderful to see so many folks show up, especially so many youth from the Leos and the Boys and Girls, the Boy Scouts. And Councilmember Pappen, I think you were talking about this at the event, but especially the young kids there to get to be planting those trees. And then by the time they're at Taylor, they can come back and say, I planted that tree. And yes, also I echo the comments about Measure A. It's really wonderful, the extra scholarships that Park and Rec is offering for the summer camps this summer. And I've been working to get those flyers to different areas in the community that I know have a lot of folks that could really benefit from that. And also echoing that tomorrow night at the Rec Center from 6:30 to 8:30, we have the event for folks to see the initial conceptual design and give feedback for the Marina Vista and Bayside Manor parks. All of the folks in that neighborhood have gotten mailers, as well as an incredible group of volunteers came together, and we have knocked on every single door in those two neighborhoods and dropped a door hanger on every single door in those neighborhoods. So I really hope the community appreciates the effort that we're making to make sure that they have an opportunity to give their voice and give their input. And I think it's great that we have the in-person event as well as the surveys, so that unfortunately a lot of the folks that I talk to that have kids said, oh, you know, my child has soccer, my child has cheerleading. But it's great that we're doing the surveys as well so that everyone's voice is included. So really hoping for a good turnout tomorrow evening. Thank you. Yeah, free ice cream.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay, I have attended a lot of conferences and an awful lot of meetings lately. The big update I would give you from the UC Davis Symposium on Air Quality, Emissions, and Noise, which was paid for by the SFO Roundtable, is Archer is a local vertical takeoff and landing electric flight company out of Monterey, and they are starting to work on their routes that'll be running from San Francisco to San Jose, which will be flying over us. They said that they have been reaching out to cities. To my knowledge, they haven't reached out to us, so I've already asked the roundtable to bring Archer in. But city manager, it might actually be pretty cool if we hosted a demonstration of one of these vertical takeoff and landing electric helicopters. I mean, I've seen pictures of it now, but it is something that's coming. The FAA is fully in support of what they're calling new mobility on that, and it's better that we at least get them to hear our concerns. My concern to the public is we will not have privacy in our backyards. That's kind of the general feeling from the roundtable. The other big issue out there was that airplanes produce a lot more ultrafine pollution, and now the health studies are coming out to the detrimental effect of people living near or under airports on that. Emergency services, we had our first in-person meeting at the Department of Emergency Management, so in the new OES, the new Emergency Operation OEC Center. And basically the budget's going to go down a little bit. We're going to owe a few $1,000s less. It's going to stay the same this year, could go up next year. One of the things that thankfully Supervisor Slocum has taken over the chair, agreed with my request that we look countywide for monitors. This could be air quality monitoring, flood water monitoring, rainwater monitoring, so that we can have a better regional emergency alert system for disasters coming up. So that's going to come back to the budget in June when we finalize the budget. The city lobbyist has gotten back to me as the mayor, and whoever next year mayor, you're going to be wearing that hat, that she met with the lobbyist of Cal Cities and strongly encourages, and it's not just council members, but staff. Staff, you could also serve on a number of Cal Cities policy committees. And so she just wanted the word to go out to encourage everyone to look at the policy committees. And again, I serve on one that has a number of public works staff. I'm on transportation, communication, and public works. So it has a lot of public works. But I think it's a great way of us getting integrated into that world. On code enforcement at the Cal Cities conference, I know both council members were out lobbying. I was attending events. They got caught in a bomb scare at the Capitol. Thankfully, everybody was okay. I attended an event that is using, I think they're called red flag codes, which was not what I thought they were. These are code enforcement codes. And one of the things that seems to be growing in California is with shoplifting. There are some people who shoplift a few items, personal use, maybe to turn around for drug money. But there are very big, large professional rings, and it's called boosted, which was a new term to me. And they are buying homes in nice single-family neighborhoods and using the homes as warehouses for boosted or warehousing stolen goods on there. And yet there is a whole bunch of existing laws that can be used to enforce against these actions. But the outcome of this was, it's really great if the public is aware of what's going on in their neighborhood, because we may not catch a home that has been turned into a warehouse on that. MILLBRAE BPAC had its meeting. This is something that I hope will come up in goal setting, assuming the committees and commissions get looked at. Most of the conversation at the last couple of BPACs has actually been in traffic calming. So I'm glad to see that traffic calming has cleared it to the next level of goal setting. And traffic calming, I think, is a huge issue for all of our people on that, and where it fits with bike pedestrian. It fits because obviously people are not going to walk or ride their bikes when people are driving like crazy people. So it's just something for us to look at, is how we move bike pedestrian and traffic calming as a city in the future. And I think I also attended Life Moves conference. I apologize to all of the attendees of the Mayor's Coordinating Council. We had to cancel that so that City of MILLBRAE could be fully represented at Life Moves, because they are our partner on that. For all of you who are civic coordinating members, if you've got an event coming up, please make sure that the city clerk and pio@ci.millbrae.ca.us with the flyer of your event. We are trying really hard to help support every community event, but also make sure that they're not on top of each other. And the avenue is to either go to the city clerk email, and I'll let her give out that one, or to Justine Bleeker, which is pio@city of of on that. So with that, we will bring the civic coordinating meeting back in June. Sorry, long day today on that. But any of the coordinating council members, please feel free to reach out to me or the city clerk so that we do know what you're doing. And we are still trying to update the attendee list. We've got a lot of people who are no longer, some not even no longer living in the city. So if you could make sure that we know who your representative is, that would be great. And finally, Gina, for CCAG. CCAG BPAC was canceled because they couldn't find a room, even though several of us have offered up room in our cities for that. So, you know, it could be that we're just overwhelmed with so much going on, but I just wanted to let you know that I think MILLBRAE would be happy to host the BPAC meeting, and I'm sure there are other cities there too. And well, you know, we have a lovely young woman, Audrey, but pretty much now Sean and Kaki come to every meeting on that. So if you could follow up, we have been trying for CCAG BPAC to talk about e-bikes and e-bike safety, helmet safety, how to get helmets out to kids and adults, but adults are not required by law any longer, and standardizing signs. So we really would like to meet, but CCAG BPAC, Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee, under CCAG. So if there's anything you can do, if it goes to, we tend to meet 6 to 8 times a year, so it's not unusual for meetings to be canceled, but we do have things we'd like. We have there is a county of San Mateo, unincorporated county of San Mateo, that also has a bike pedestrian committee, and they have been wanting to meet with us. So there are things that we could be doing. And anybody still watching at this time of night in MILLBRAE, BART has reached out to me. They would really, really, really love someone from MILLBRAE to serve on the BART Bike Pedestrian Advisory, or I'm sorry, it's the Bicycle Advisory Committee, no pedestrians, just bikes. So bike people, it helps MILLBRAE if all of us can give a little bit more time and serve on some of these regional committees. And I have the contact person from the BART Bike Advisory Committee. Thank you, that's it. And I guess if there are no questions, it is 10:10 and we are checking the agenda, adjourning City Council at 10:10 p.m. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Council.